Chapter 498. Although Chu Shifeng had some complaints about esteemed Wang Fei, he was very clear that His Highness couldn't let go of that woman. Of course, he hoped that the two of them would patch things up soon. Otherwise, His Highness's icy face would leave his subordinates trembling in fear. After all, when esteemed Wang Fei was in the estate, everyone was much more relaxed. No matter how angry His Highness was, esteemed Wang Fei only needed to say a few good words to smooth things over. But now even Chu Shifeng had to tread carefully, much less everyone else. Using Emperor Tianhui's summons as an excuse, he could go fetch esteemed Wang Fei back. Even if he said it was His Highness who sent him, esteemed Wang Fei should yield, right? Seeing His Highness Duke of Qin remain silent, Chu Shifeng probed, "Your Highness, should this subordinate go?" At this moment, Bailey Mingxiang suddenly spoke up. "Your Highness, why don't you enter the palace from the north gates? You can pick up esteemed Wang Fei on the way?" The Duke of Qin's estate was closer to the south gates, while the Han estate was closer to the north. If he brought Han Yunxi to the Duke of Qin's estate, he'd have to go through the south gates. If Long Fei Yi went to find Han Yunxi, then he'd have to go through the north gates. Actually, the journey was the same. The key lay in whether Han Yunxi came or Long Fei Yi went. Bailey Mingxiang was a woman, so she understood women better than Chu Shifeng. She was also more meticulous. She mused that with esteemed Wang Fei's temper, esteemed Wang Fei might not return with Chu Shifeng if His Highness didn't pick her up personally. Unless a woman's heart had given up, she'd always wait for her husband to pick her up. But if His Highness Duke of Qin went personally, everything would be different. What conflict couldn't be resolved if he went personally? Chu Shifeng and Zhao Mama both understood what Bailey Mingxiang meant by her suggestion. Chu Shifeng snorted disdainfully, thinking that His Highness Duke of Qin wouldn't agree. But instead, His Highness Duke of Qin simply said, "You can come with me." Her? Come with him? Bailey Mingxiang's heart gave a lurch as she felt overwhelmed by the favor. If Zhao Mama hadn't shoved her aside, she wouldn't have reacted. His Highness wanted her to follow. Before she could even catch up, her heart was already pounding non-stop. When His Highness Duke of Qin had already walked far away, Bailey Mingxiang hurriedly chased after him under Zhao Mama's urging. She didn't dare to get too close and kept a distance of 3 steps from him. After boarding the carriage, Bailey Mingxiang consciously sat next to the coachman. His heart was filled with anxiety all the way to the Han residence. As soon as the carriage stopped, a cold voice came from inside. "Go and call him out." "Yes." Bailey Mingxiang naturally knew that His Highness had asked her to come along to persuade the Princess Consort. She hesitated for a moment, but still mustered up her courage and whispered, "Your Highness, we're already at the door. Why don't we?" Unfortunately, before he could finish his sentence, Long Fei Yi reprimanded him coldly. "What nonsense are you spouting? Why aren't you going?" Bailey Mingxiang's heart almost jumped out of her mouth. She turned to leave. No, she ran. At this moment, Han Yunxi was changing the dressing on her own wound. Last night, she'd heard from Su Donglin that the Duke of Qin's estate hadn't made any moves, so she felt at ease. She mused that Long Fei Yi hadn't made a move despite such a big incident in the capital. Most likely, he was still sitting on top of the mountain to watch the tigers fight. As long as he didn't get involved, she didn't have anything to worry about. In any case, she hated these senseless fights in Tianning's imperial harem. Han Yunxi reacted calmly to Bailey Mingxiang's arrival. She only assumed that Bailey Mingxiang had come to persuade her to return. "You came just in time. I'm lacking a helper here," Han Yunxi said mildly. Bailey Mingxiang saw the mangled flesh on her shoulder and felt distressed. He quickly took over the gauze and helped her treat it. "Esteemed Wang Fei, why didn't you find little Chun Xiang for help?" Forget about little Chun Xiang. Han Yunxi didn't even want to see Lady Helian. That group of people had urged her to return as soon as they arrived. She treated her maternal home as a safe haven, but that group of people couldn't wait for her to leave. Han Yunxi didn't speak, but lazily sprawled on the bed, enjoying Bailey Mingxiang's service. Bailey Mingxiang coaxed her as he bandaged her wound. "Esteemed Wang Fei, why don't you return?" Han Yunxi pretended not to hear. But Bailey Mingxiang said again, "Esteemed Wang Fei, His Highness sent this servant to pick you up?" That wasn't the end of the sentence. His Highness sent this servant to pick you up, and His Highness sent this servant to pick you up in a carriage to enter the palace, had completely different meanings. Still, no matter what the meaning was, Han Yunqi's gloomy face relaxed quite a bit. Still, she didn't say a word. Bailey Mingxiang wasn't in a rush to coax her, but carefully finished bandaging the wound. Actually, esteemed Wang Fei's wound was very deep. Moreover, it hadn't been stitched up, so it took a lot of effort to bandage it up. After a long while, Bailey Mingxiang finished. Afraid that His Highness would grow impatient waiting outside, she quickly asked, "Esteemed Wang Fei, shall this servant help you tidy up?" "No need," Han Yunqi refused. "Esteemed Wang Fei, husband and wife quarrel at the head of the bed, but reconcile at the foot of the bed. His Highness has already yielded, so why don't you come back with this servant?" Bailey Mingxiang persuaded earnestly. Han Yunqi mused to herself, "Does this count as yielding? Does he believe in my innocence?" Chu Shifeng's first complaint was enough for that guy to show up in the middle of the night. Couldn't he come himself now? Would she go back just because he sent someone to pick her up? And after that, would he still not believe her? Or wouldn't he explain where he and Duan Muyao had gone? Would he keep arguing with her? Or would he just forget about everything and pretend nothing ever happened? Since she'd already returned to the Han estate, there was no reason for her to go back without a clear explanation. "Esteemed Wang Fei, then what will it take for you to come back with this servant?" Bailey Mingxiang coaxed again. Han Yunqi replied offhandedly, "Unless he comes in person." Hadn't Bailey Mingxiang been waiting for these exact words? Thrilled, she grabbed Han Yunqi's hand and said, "Esteemed Wang Fei, quick, come with this servant." "What for?" Han Yunqi didn't understand. Bailey Mingxiang didn't explain, but pulled her outside until they reached the Han estate gates. Han Yunqi halted her steps at the sight of the luxurious carriage parked outside. This was the Duke of Qin's highest-grade carriage. Who else would dare to use it except for Long Feiyi? Did he really come in person? Seeing esteemed Wang Fei's surprise and delight, Bailey Mingxiang's heart finally settled down. In a low voice, she said, "Esteemed Wang Fei, you have to keep your word. His Majesty summoned you and His Highness to the palace. Once you leave, you'll have to go back with His Highness." She didn't say that His Highness Duke of Qin was here to pick up esteemed Wang Fei, but set up a trap for esteemed Wang Fei to jump into. She wanted esteemed Wang Fei to think that His Highness's true purpose was to pick her up and that going to the palace was just a side trip. She had to admit that Bailey Mingxiang was very smart. But what kind of person was Han Yunqi? How could she not see through such little tricks? As soon as she heard the words "go to the palace," she guessed what was going on. As it turned out, Emperor Tianhui had summoned her and Long Fei. Long Fei must have come to pick her up along the way, but for some strange reason, she didn't expose them. Instead, she agreed with Bailey Mingxiang. Bailey Mingxiang rejoiced. She knew that esteemed Wang Fei had a stubborn temper, but her heart was still soft before His Highness Duke of Qin. Now all she had to do was wait for His Highness and esteemed Wang Fei to leave the palace before fanning the flames a little. Then she'd have His Highness yield a little and succeed. Master and servant were about to head for the carriage when Long Fei Ye's sharp voice came from inside. "Are we going or not?" This wasn't his first time here. The first time was when he came to deliver the medical pouch. He'd already yielded twice, so what else did this woman want? He'd been waiting in the carriage for almost an hour. He almost thought that she wouldn't come out. Han Yunqi stopped in her tracks. She didn't want to ask any more questions, but her heart grew cold. This was his attitude when he came to pick her up in person. So impatient. If he waited so long, wouldn't he come in and take a look? If Emperor Tianhui hadn't summoned him, would he have come at all? "Your Highness," just then esteemed Wang Fei was... Bailey Mingxiang wanted to explain, but Han Yunqi only glared at him coldly. "He only came to find me to enter the palace with him, right?" Bailey Mingxiang was put in a difficult spot, but still forced himself to lie. "Esteemed Wang Fei, we'll return to the estate once we leave the palace." It's not like you don't know His Highness's temper. His Highness didn't sleep at all while you were gone. Just look at his face later, it won't look good. Han Yunqi's face was gloomy as she curtsied. Qinxie greets your highness. I've made you wait. It's good that you know. Hurry up and get in. Long Fei Ye's tone was filled with impatience. If Emperor Tianhui hadn't summoned her, Han Yunqi would probably flick her sleeves and leave already. Yes. She suppressed her anger as she got into the carriage. If this was the past, he'd always give her a hand whenever she got in or out of the carriage. But now he sat unmoving in the carriage. Han Yunqi had already entered, but he didn't even spare her a glance. Han Yunqi maintained a respectful attitude as she sat in the seat furthest away from him with her head bowed. She hadn't even been this distant when she was 100 paces away from him in the past. As the carriage moved forward, the driver hurried along, but Bailey Mingxiang only said in a low voice, "Let's slow down a bit. There's no rush in the palace." There was still some distance between the Han estate and the palace. At least let master and mistress spend more time together. Bailey Mingxiang wasn't sure if she'd overreached herself this time, but her lips quirked up into a self-mocking smile. Inside the carriage, the silence was stifling enough to make it hard to breathe. The air between Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi seemed to grow heavy and heavy. Unconsciously, Han Yunqi looked up and saw that Long Fei Ye's complexion really wasn't looking too good. After all, she'd taken Bailey Mingxiang's lies to heart. Just what did this guy do with Duan Muyao? Did something happen in Tianshan Kenzo? How did he get by these past few days? Did he really not sleep? Seeing that Long Fei Yi was about to look up, Han Yunqi immediately lowered her head again. Long Fei Yi did indeed raise his head and look over. His eyes were as cold as ice, but they were still focused on her shoulders. The clothes on her shoulders were smooth and clean, with no signs of bandages. Compared to Han Yunqi, his gaze was more wanton. He quickly studied her quiet little face again, as if inspecting a precious treasure he'd lent out to see if it was still in good condition. Still, he didn't say a word. Like this, the two of them walked in silence until they reached the palace gates. It was time to get off the carriage. Chapter 499. The carriage slowly came to a stop. It was time to get off. But Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi didn't move. One had his head bowed, making it impossible to see his expression, while the other was expressionless as she stared out the window. In the end, it was Han Yunqi who emerged first. She was about to jump off the carriage when Bailey Mingxiang hastily stopped her. "Esteemed Wang Fei, Mingxiang will help you." Han Yunqi didn't speak, but jumped off the carriage to avoid him. She wasn't some delicate flower, much less a sickly invalid. Why would she need someone to help her off the carriage? The driver was helpless at the sight. In the past, esteemed Wang Fei had always been helped on and off the carriage by His Highness. By now, Long Fei Yi had recovered his wits and silently got off the carriage. He glanced at Han Yunqi before walking towards the imperial study. Naturally, Han Yunqi followed him. Bailey Mingxiang didn't follow, but stood guard by the carriage with the driver. Han Yunqi was clearly distracted, so she didn't notice that Bailey Mingxiang wasn't following them. As she walked, she found it hard to keep up with Long Fei Yi. His legs were so long that she could take 2 steps with him. Only now did she realize that he'd purposely slowed down when he held her hand in the past. Thinking up to here, she didn't chase after him, but walked at her usual pace. But Long Fei Yi didn't slow down at all, but picked up his pace instead. As a result, the distance between the two of them grew wider and wider. As she watched Long Fei walk further and further away, Han Yunqi's expression grew uglier and uglier. She almost turned to leave. With his attitude, he probably wouldn't even notice if she suddenly disappeared. Damned Emperor Tianhui. It was enough to summon Long Fei Yi, but why did he summon her as well? Sulking, Han Yunqi cursed Emperor Tianhui countless times in her heart. By the time she reached the door to the imperial study, Long Fei Yi had already been waiting for her with a taut face. She still walked the remaining few steps quickly. However, as soon as she reached his side, he went straight into the house and left her with his back facing her. Long Fei Yi. Han Yunqi was so angry that she glared at him. Unfortunately, it was useless. He didn't have eyes on his back and couldn't see. She walked in with large strides, looking like she was telling strangers not to come near and acquaintances not to disturb her. Her expression was really twice as ugly as Long Fei Ye's. Emperor Tianhui disliked Long Fei Ye's cold face to begin with. Now that he saw Han Yunqi's expression, he assumed that this couple wasn't giving him any face and immediately grew gloomy. This assassination attempt had nothing to do with him. What was the attitude of these two people? Come and have a seat. Yunqi, did you get a fright this time? Emperor Tianhui asked with concern as he walked towards the tea table. He hadn't summoned the Duke of Qin and his wife to question them, but simply wanted to chat. No, Han Yunqi answered straightforwardly. Could she say that she was really frightened? Could she say that without Gu, she would have been shot to death by the arrows long ago? Could she really be frightened by the sight of Gu Qishao's battered back and bruised body? She wasn't here to complain and make Emperor Tianhui laugh at her. If Long Tianma and Mu Qinggu hadn't escalated the situation to the point of endangering the capital, Emperor Tianhui might even be thanking those crossbow archers. Did you get hurt? Emperor Tianhui asked next. No, Han Yunqi replied mildly. Emperor Tianhui was about to ask some more questions, but Han Yunqi's curt reply made him unable to continue. After sitting down, he made a gesture, and Long Fei Yi sat down across from him. There were only 2 seats at the table in the imperial study, so Han Yunqi had nowhere to sit. Emperor Tianhui should have given her a seat, but he didn't say a word. Instead, he slowly steeped some tea. Long Fei Yi didn't speak either, but Han Yunqi stood behind him like a servant girl. Her head and eyes were bowed, but her back was still ramrod straight. Emperor Tianhui was about to pour some tea for Long Fei Yi when Long Fei Yi stopped him. I don't dare. Chindi will do it. His movements were 100 times more elegant than Emperor Tianhui's. Imperial brother didn't make a special trip to find Chindi for tea. Did you? He started the conversation without paying any attention to Han Yunqi standing on one side. Emperor Tianhui glanced at Han Yunqi in astonishment. Could it be that the Duke of Qin had grown tired of this woman? Didn't he dote on her before? Is he just going to let her stand here and ignore her? Jin really did make a special trip to find you for tea. Ever since the black market gunpowder explosion, Zhan's ears haven't had a moment of peace. Emperor Tianhui sighed with emotion. Imperial brother has worked hard for the country. It's been hard on you, Long Fei Yi said half-heartedly. Emperor Tianhui sighed and asked, have you found any clues about those crossbow archers? You'll have to ask the Imperial guards to find out. Chindi is waiting for news too. Long Fei Yi pushed the blame away. Emperor Tianhui suddenly lost his temper. Those useless Imperial guards, they can't even find the culprit when they're trying to catch a turtle in a jar. Zhen will give Mu Qinggu 3 days. If he doesn't find the culprit by then, Zhen will cripple him. Long Fei Yi remained silent for a while before he said, you can't blame the young general. Chindi personally searched for an entire day without finding the culprit. Emperor Tianhui was astonished by his words. Aside from the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, the Duke of Qin had never shown favoritism to any faction despite his overwhelming power. But today he was speaking up for Mu Qinggu. He'd clearly stayed in the Duke of Qin's estate without making any moves over the past few days. So where did the search come from? Moreover, Mu Qinggu's subordinates had turned traitor and almost took Han Yunqi's life. Didn't that guy bear a grudge? Don't blame him? There's actually a traitor in the Imperial Guards. How serious is that? How can Jin not blame him? Emperor Tianhui slapped the table angrily. Long Fei Yi didn't feel any pain or itch. He has so many soldiers in his hands, so it's impossible to cover every single one of them. It's inevitable. If Imperial brother wants to deal with him, he'll have to wait until this matter is over. Now's the time to use people. Emperor Tianhui's eyes flickered with complicated emotions. The Duke of Qin seemed to be aloof and neutral on the surface, but his words were clearly protecting Mu Qinggu. Was there some secret between the Duke of Qin's estate and General Mu's estate? Emperor Tianhui drank a few cups of tea before he spoke again. You know what happened at the military depot last night, right? How could gunpowder be so easy to get? As Chindi sees it, this incident and that incident at the black market aren't much different. Emperor Tianhui was more concerned about that than anything else. What do you mean? He asked anxiously. Only the armies of the two nations have access to gunpowder. General Mu wouldn't be stupid enough to light it up in front of his own house, right? Long Fei Yi laughed lightly. His words were obviously suspecting the Chu clan. Emperor Tianhui laughed coldly. What if he was hiding it for himself and accidentally detonated it? This, Long Fei Yi gave him a meaningful look, but stopped favoring the Mu clan. That's hard to say. Chindi was only guessing on the spur of the moment. As for the truth, it's still up to Imperial Brother to decide. But his previous words had already planted the seeds of doubt in Emperor Tianhui's heart. General Mu's estate held one of Tianning's 3 largest military forces and commanded 100,000 Imperial Guards. It was only natural that they were loyal to Tianning, but who they were loyal to had always been a variable. This was especially true after His Highness Duke of Qin's forces grew strong enough to contend against Emperor Tianhui's. He seemed to be neutral on the surface, but was actually the most worrisome of all. It wasn't until Emperor Tianhui reactivated the Crown Prince and united father and son against the Duke of Qin's estate that General Mu's stance became clear. In front of the Duke of Qin, Emperor Tianhui wouldn't be on guard against his own son for now. He'd also included General Mu's estate in his own sphere of influence. But now the Imperial Guards had changed sides. The Crown Prince was insinuating insinuations and squeezing out noble Consort Chu. The military depot had exploded, and the Duke of Qin's attitude today. How could the paranoid Emperor Tianhui set his heart at ease? What Long Fei Yi wanted was for Emperor Tianhui to grow suspicious of the Mu clan and the Crown Prince. After being reactivated, the Crown Prince had long harbored thoughts of rebelling and usurping the throne. But he'd always lacked the right opportunity to do so. Now was a good chance. Of course, the Crown Prince was still too young and inexperienced to accomplish anything on his own. But things would be different if the Mu clan had thoughts of rebellion as well. As long as the Mu clan could harden their hearts to help the Crown Prince, the Chu clan wouldn't be able to reap any benefits no matter what they did. Long Fei Yi hadn't made a move this entire time, but he was still keeping track of the situation. At this point, Emperor Tianhui didn't ask any more questions, but started chatting about other irrelevant topics. Long Fei Yi kept to himself as he replied, even nodding his head several times without saying a word. As they chatted and drank tea, 2 hours passed by. Han Yunqi's legs were sore from all the standing. She couldn't help but glance at Long Fei Yi multiple times, but Long Fei Yi seemed to have forgotten about her existence and completely ignored her. Of course, Emperor Tianhui remembered her existence. He gave her a meaningful look before having Eunuch Luo set up the chessboard. Duke of Qin, you haven't exchanged pointers with Zhen in a long time. If you don't lose today, I won't let you go. Who would dare to win a game of chess against the Emperor? But Long Fei Yi dared. He'd played chess countless times since he was young and had never lost a single match. Long Fei Yi didn't speak, but the white and black chess pieces soon began to play against each other. Long Fei Yi's stance showed that he wasn't planning to lose. If he wasn't planning to lose, did that mean he wasn't planning to leave? Han Yunqi kept her eyes lowered as she stared at the chessboard. She was alone in a world of silence. This game of chess went on for a full 4 hours. By the time night fell, there was still no winner. Including the previous 2 hours, Han Yunqi had been standing for a total of 6 hours. Her calves had even gone numb. In the end, an urgent report arrived, prompting Emperor Tianhui to stop the game. Hee. Looks like Zhen has no choice but to let you go today. Chindi should take his leave as well. Long Fei Yi lazily rose to his feet. He walked easily, but Han Yunqi's legs almost gave way as soon as she took a step. Still, she steadied herself. Her calves grew numb with each step, but she kept her back straight and her head held high as she followed him out. Emperor Tianhui stared at their departing figures, filled with doubts. He was trying to figure out what had happened between Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi, but the current situation in the capital made him too preoccupied to think about it. Just like before, Long Fei Yi was walking in front while Han Yunqi followed behind. But she was no longer looking at his back, but staring at the road with her head bowed. She didn't know how long she'd been walking, but she only lifted her head when she reached the palace gates. Actually, she didn't like looking at his back because it gave her a sense of unfamiliarity. But this time, she didn't even have time to look at Long Fei Ye's back, because Long Fei Ye had already boarded his carriage. Chapter 500. Seeing esteemed Wang Fei walk out alone, Bailey Mingxiang hurriedly ran over to receive her. Esteemed Wang Fei, get in the carriage. His Highness is waiting. Where are we going? Han Yunqi asked indifferently. Back to the palace with His Highness. Esteemed Wang Fei, you said that as long as His Highness personally came, you would return to the palace. Quickly get in the carriage. His Highness is waiting. Although Bailey Mingxiang was comforting her with a smile, her heart was very uncomfortable. She never thought that His Highness would come out first and even get into the carriage. Did something happen between the two of them in the palace? Why was esteemed Wang Fei so disappointed? Han Yunqi didn't say anything as she seriously looked at Bailey Mingxiang. Bailey Mingxiang was still resisting at first, but soon he couldn't take it anymore and avoided her gaze. Go tell, he doesn't need to wait for me. Saying this, she prepared to leave, but Bailey Mingxiang hurriedly pulled her back. Get in the carriage. It's not like you don't know His Highness' temper. If you yield one step, His Highness will definitely yield 10 steps. Han Yunqi insisted on leaving, but Bailey Mingxiang wouldn't let her go. He earnestly tried to persuade her, esteemed Wang Fei, if His Highness didn't have you in his heart, he would have left long ago, right? He's still waiting in the carriage. You should think about it carefully. Han Yunqi looked at Bailey Mingxiang and her eyes suddenly turned red. All the grievances she had felt in the imperial study came flooding back. Mingxiang, my leg hurts. Leg? What's wrong with esteemed Wang Fei's leg? Bailey Mingxiang was anxious. He was about to crouch down to inspect her leg when His Highness Duke of Qin's impatient voice came from the carriage. Han Yunqi, why aren't you leaving yet? His tone was so fierce. He had never been this fierce since she'd met him. Ever since he accompanied her to pay respects to Empress Dowager Li, he would often rush her. No matter how anxious and impatient he was, he would always stop 3 to 5 steps away from her and turn to look at her. Coldly, he asked, Han Yunqi, aren't you leaving yet? He had never abandoned her, nor had he ever gotten angry, but this time he had left her on the road. He was so fierce. Han Yunqi strode to the window and asked coldly, Your Highness, please wait for a moment. I have something to ask Your Highness. I'll leave after that. In truth, the entire journey from the Han estate to the palace gates had left her feeling incredibly stifled. She really wanted to ask about Duan Muyao, explain about Gu, and quarrel with Long Fei Yi. However, after being mercilessly forgotten in the imperial study, she suddenly felt powerless. She suddenly did not want to say anything. If one had to work very hard to be liked by someone, then what was the point of being liked? Right now, she only wanted to clarify that question and then leave. Speak, he said coldly. The antidote that Gu gave, was it really only 80% full? Han Yunqi asked very seriously. As soon as she said this, the carriage fell silent. He said that the antidote he gave was indeed a full bottle, Han Yunqi added. However, the carriage remained silent. Han Yunqi waited patiently and did not rush him. After an indeterminate amount of time, Long Fei Yi finally spoke. So you believe him? Han Yunqi avoided answering. I'm just asking Your Highness. You believe him and suspect this prince? Long Fei Yi asked again. Han Yunqi only heard his cold voice, but did not know that he had been absent-minded in the carriage for a long time. She did not know how much hatred this man had endured, how much effort he had put in, how many plans he had messed up, and how many sleepless nights he had endured, from the moment he had decided to hide that matter until the moment Mute Granny hanged herself. From the moment they entered the palace until now, he had deliberately ignored her in order to provoke her into speaking up, to provoke her into rushing in front of him to argue with him. But who would have thought that this woman would ask such a question the moment she opened her mouth? It's Gu again. It's Gu again. As it turned out, she had unconditionally trusted him in Medicine Ghost Valley only because he was the Gu Chi Sha she loathed. Now that it was Gu, she immediately began to question her trust. This time, Han Yunqi fell silent. Han Yunqi, answer this prince's question. Long Fei Yi said angrily. Gu brought me to find Mute Granny, so if he's really Gu Qisha, then he definitely wouldn't have hidden the antidote for himself, Han Yunqi replied objectively. She was not an idiot. Back then, she had indeed been prejudiced against Gu Qisha, which was why she had blindly believed that Gu Qisha had tricked them. But now that she was facing Gu Qisha, she was not biased. She was only thinking rationally. Even though she did not say it outright, everyone understood what she was implying. Whoever had hidden the antidote for the broomcorn millet poison would have Mute Granny in their hands. By hiding Mute Granny, they were undoubtedly hiding the mystery of her origins. You think that Mute Granny is in this prince's hands? He did not know what Long Fei Ye's expression was like in the carriage, but he actually went straight to the point. Gu wouldn't have hidden it for himself? Then why did he put in the ineffective powder? Why did the ineffective powder so coincidentally turn the porcelain bottle black? Long Fei Yi asked again. Gu was not only pill fiend, he was also the black-robed man who had barged into the hidden pavilion. He had done all of this to arouse Han Yunqi's suspicions. He would definitely not let this matter rest. He, Long Fei Yi, had never needed to lie to any woman. But since he had already told this woman, he would definitely not admit to it. Even if he died, he would not admit it. In the face of Long Fei Ye's questioning, Han Yunqi recalled what Gu had said that night. She was in a mess. In the end, she said indifferently, "Your Highness, just pretend that I didn't ask." With that, she powerlessly turned and left. However, Long Fei Yi alighted from the carriage and shouted angrily, "Han Yunqi, stop right there." Han Yunqi really did stop in her tracks. "Does your Highness have any other orders? You still haven't answered this prince's question. Do you think that Mute Granny is in this prince's hands?" Long Fei Ye's dark eyes were filled with stubbornness. However, Han Yunqi remained silent. Long Fei Yi grabbed her hand fiercely. "Answer me." However, Han Yunqi ultimately lowered her head. This man's contemptuous smile in the brothel had pierced her heart. She was no longer the foolish woman who would stare at him foolishly. Before she could clearly distinguish right from wrong, she wouldn't believe Gu. She wouldn't believe him. She wouldn't believe anyone. Finally, Long Fei Yi released her hand and coldly ordered, "Someone, send her back to the Han estate." Han Yunqi's heart skipped a beat, but a self-deprecating smile appeared on her face. She had guessed correctly. Bailey Mingxiang had been lying to her all this time. "Fine, I'll go back." Long Fei Yi, "If I go back, I'll never come back." Bailey Mingxiang was scared out of her wits. She didn't dare to persuade His Highness Duke of Qin and could only chase after esteemed Wang Fei. Unfortunately, by the time she chased after him, the coachman had already left and Long Fei Yi had already disappeared. Looking at the empty space behind her, Bailey Mingxiang suddenly didn't know how to persuade him. At this moment, any words would be useless. His Highness Duke of Qin really had left. Han Yunqi didn't take the carriage, but endured the pain in her legs to walk back to the Han estate. Bailey Mingxiang followed her all the way until she settled down at the Han estate. As soon as Long Fei Yi returned to the Duke of Qin's estate, he ordered Chu Shifeng to do something. Stop all of Pill Fiend Pharmacy's construction. He ordered cold. Chu Shifeng could clearly sense His Highness Duke of Qin's rage, but he still asked timidly, "What about South Ning Prefecture?" "Stop everything." Long Fei Yi raged. Chu Shifeng had no choice but to do as he was told. His Highness had just told him to secretly build a large pharmacy in South Ning Prefecture that was twice as big as the one in the capital. Moreover, His Highness and Medicine City's Wang Gong had designed the blueprints together. It looks like it's not just a simple argument this time. Chu Shifeng could only do as he was told. As soon as he left, Tang Li showed up. Tang Li was about to fall ill from boredom at the hidden pavilion. Now that he was spared, he was as happy as a bird released from its cage. "Big bro, when you're better, we brothers can work together and kill off that Gu guy. I refuse to believe he's so lucky." "Go to Celestial Mountain for me," Long Fei Yi said. Tang Li's expression changed. What for? He had run away from the wedding and caused the Tang clan to offend the bride's faction. His father had kept the bride's side in check while having Aunt Ru lead a group of people to search for him. Meanwhile, he was hiding in the most dangerous and safest hidden pavilion. Every month, he would release a fake trail to lure the old folks into running in circles. This month, Aunt Ru and the rest would probably go to Celestial Mountain as well. If he went there now, he'd be seeking death. Go see my master for me. Long Fei Ye's sorrowful tone made Tang Li feel heavy as well. He sighed softly and said, "All right, I'll go." Afterwards, Long Fei Ye met with General Bailey again. The two of them had a secret conversation behind closed doors, but it was impossible to know what they discussed. As soon as General Bailey returned to the Bailey estate, he transferred a few mermaid soldiers to hide in the Han Estate's lake and wait for orders. Meanwhile, Long Fei Yi returned to his quarters to continue treating his wounds. His seclusion lasted for 10 days and 10 nights. Within those 10 days, the capital city fell into chaos. Then all of Tianning fell into chaos. 3 days later, General Mu discovered that the gunpowder had exploded inside the military depot, not outside the walls. When Emperor Tianhui found out, he flew into a rage and questioned the Mu family about their secret stash of gunpowder. General Mu denied it, saying that the location of the explosion wasn't enough evidence. As for the truth, whether one of his subordinates had stashed the gunpowder away or someone had planted the evidence to frame them still needed to be investigated. Without any evidence, Emperor Tianhui had no right to condemn the Mu family. Still, he reduced General Mu's military authority in front of all the civil and military officials and gave the 1st Artillery Corps to the Minister of War, Lord Wu, to take charge of. Naturally, he gave the gunpowder storehouse to the Ministry of War as well. At the same time, because the Imperial Guard still hadn't found the whereabouts of the crossbowmen, Emperor Tianhui removed Mu Qinggu from his position as Great General of the Imperial Guards and replaced him with Deputy General Meng Zhan. It had to be said that the Mu family had taken a huge tumble this time. The Imperial Guards and the 1st Artillery Corps were all elite soldiers who were directly responsible for the safety of the capital city. How could anyone not feel heartache when they were gone? The Mu family's hearts were dripping blood, but Crown Prince Long Tianma felt even worse. As soon as court was over, the Crown Prince lost his cool and rushed straight to the Mu family to interrogate Mu Qinggu. Just what's the deal with that commander of the Imperial Guards? Speak. Mu Qingwu's face was filled with resentment, but he didn't speak. Long Tianma glared at General Mu. Great General, speak. General Mu's expression was grave as he fell silent. If you don't speak, how can this Crown Prince help you? Imperial Father is only taking the first step. Don't you know that noble Consort Chu's already been favored? If you keep pillow talk, you'll have no choice but to admit to your secret stash of gunpowder. Long Tianmo raged. Finally, Mu Qinggu couldn't take it anymore. Father, His Highness Crown Prince has the right to know. Chapter 501. For Mu Qinggu to say something like this, there was no doubt that this father and son pair knew about the betrayal of the Imperial Army. Even though he didn't know the truth, Long Tianma was even angrier. He slammed his fist on the table. You. Good. Very good. He and Mu Qinggu had done so much and had gained his father's trust in the beginning. However, after his father summoned the Mu family to ask about the betrayal of the Imperial Army, everything began to change. If it wasn't for the betrayal of the Imperial Army arousing his father's suspicion, things would not have developed to this point. If it was before, based on his father's trust in the Mu family, he wouldn't have stripped them of their military power so quickly just because of the gunpowder explosion in the armory. At least his father would still consider and hesitate. They could still fight for the time his father had to consider and hesitate. But now, the entire court was laughing at the Eastern Palace. Who didn't know that the emperor suppressing the Mu family was questioning the Eastern Palace? Seeing that General Mu still didn't speak, Long Tianma's face twisted in anger. He was about to flick his sleeves and leave when General Mu suddenly spoke up. Your Highness, please calm your anger. This general has his own difficulties. Speak. Long Tianma forcefully suppressed his temper. But as soon as Great General Mu uttered a name, Long Tianma smashed the most precious gold-threaded cedar wood tea table in the general's estate with his fist. This name was, without a doubt, Mu Luiyue. Even though he was facing Mu Luiyue's father and brother, Long Tianma couldn't help but draw his sword. This prince will kill her. Mu Qinggu quickly stopped him. Actually, when he found out who the traitor of the imperial army was, he knew what was going on. That was why he didn't hesitate to kill him. As for the two captains in the imperial prison, they only obeyed and knew nothing, so they couldn't get anything out of them. Let go. Long Tianma's face sunk. General Mu kneeled in front of him. Your Highness, please calm your anger. My unfilial daughter has done such a ridiculous and muddle-headed thing. This general really has no face to face you. Long Tianma snorted coldly. You've kept it a secret until now. Do you still have any shame? Mu Qinggu sighed deeply and knelt down as well. Your Highness, my sister deserves to die 10,000 deaths, but she is the crown prince's wife. Upon hearing this, Long Tianma calmed down. Crown princess, how could he forget that Mu Luiyue had such a title? The crown prince consort, his woman, the mistress of the Eastern Palace. Mu Luiyue had committed a crime with such an identity, so it was destined that this matter had to be kept a secret. Otherwise, not only would the Mu family suffer, but even the Eastern Palace would suffer. Imperial father was already so suspicious. If she exposed Mu Luiyue, it would undoubtedly give Imperial father the opportunity to suppress him. Your Highness, please don't lower yourself to Luiyue's level for the time being. When this matter is over, I will definitely teach her a lesson. Your Highness, the best thing to do now is to quickly find those crossbowmen. Otherwise, His Majesty will definitely pursue this matter. The Mu family's father and son both earnestly advised. Mu Qinggu wholeheartedly protected the overall situation, and General Mu also had some selfish motives. He was reluctant to part with his daughter. Long Tianma fell to the side, his heart extremely uncomfortable. The thing he regretted the most in his life, but also the thing he couldn't regret the most, was marrying Mu Luiyue. Of course, when he married Mu Luiyue, it was for the Mu family. Now that things had reached this point, it was time to let the Mu family play its true role. After a long silence, Long Tianma lowered his voice. The two of you, rather than trembling in fear and being trampled on by others, why don't you? He didn't continue speaking, but made a motion of drawing his sword. Without a doubt, this was an attempt to rebel. Mu Qinggu was shocked, but General Mu wasn't surprised. He had long guessed that this day would come, but he didn't expect it to come so soon. Neither father nor son said a word. Long Tianma lowered his voice even further. If we don't do it now, when will we? Once Imperial Father takes away all of your military power, it'll be too late for regrets. Unfortunately, the Mu family's father and son still remained silent. General Mu usually looked crude, impulsive, and had a bad temper, but he was still very cautious when it came to such important matters. The Mu family had been through 2 generations of Tianning's monarchs. They had been able to maintain a neutral stance in the past, win Emperor Tianhui's deep trust, and control such a large military power. This was enough to prove that General Mu wasn't simple. As for Mu Qinggu, his heart wasn't so complicated. He didn't want to be loyal to anyone but Tianning and the common people. Once there was internal strife, the ones who would suffer the most would be the innocent people. Long Tianma was well aware of the Mu family's attitudes. He remained silent, but he didn't stay silent to the end. Soon enough, he left behind a few words and strode away. He said, "Fine. Count it as this crown prince's loss this time. I'll put this debt on Mu Luiyue's head." Long Tianma hadn't even left the courtyard when General Mu chased after him. "Your Highness Crown Prince. Your Highness Crown Prince, please wait." Mu Qinggu followed behind him, watching his father's once tall and sturdy figure become so haggard and old. A trace of sorrow rose in his heart. He also felt that Mu Luiyue deserved to die for this matter. Unfortunately, he knew that his father wouldn't just sit by and watch. Luiyue looked too much like his late mother. Moreover, no matter how much parents spoiled their children, it was still within reason. After all, they were blood relatives. Many times, Mu Qinggu would rather be born in a heartless and cold-blooded imperial family. That place didn't have the shackles of kinship. As soon as General Mu chased after him, Long Tianma knew he had a chance. He couldn't marry Mu Luiyue for nothing. As expected, General Mu murmured, "Your Highness Crown Prince, this soldier will remember this matter in my heart." But the current Imperial Guard, before he could finish, Long Tianma laughed coldly. Many of the Imperial Guards were promoted by your Mu family troops. Moreover, aren't the cannoneers in the Ministry of War's hands? The wisest thing Emperor Tianhui had done in his life was to seize the chance to take back the cannoneers from General Mu's estate. This was something he'd wanted to do for a long time. But the stupidest thing he'd done was to hand over the cannoneers and gunpowder stores to the Minister of War. After all, the Minister of War had long been Long Tianma's man. When Chu Qingge had received a squad of archers as her dowry, it was the Minister of War who'd suggested leaving them at the borders under the command of the cavalry general Great General Ning. After the Minister of War's suggestion, the Crown Prince wanted to follow suit. But it was General Mu who told him to avoid suspicion. General Mu nodded helplessly, but he still couldn't make up his mind. This is a serious matter, and it's come so suddenly. I ask that your Highness give this soldier some time to think it over. Long Tianma nodded. Fine. This Crown Prince will give you time, but you should make your preparations by now. Everything had happened too suddenly. He never expected his imperial father to be so suspicious, but since his father would rather believe an outsider like Chu Qingge than him, then he shouldn't blame him for abandoning their father-son relationship. When the emperor had used his life to deal with the Duke of Qin and Qin Wangfei, he'd forgotten about his imperial father in his heart. Just like that, the Eastern Palace and General Mu's estate began to make their preparations. The heavy responsibility of hunting down the archers fell to the new commander of the Imperial Guards, Meng Zhan. This man was loyal and devoted to Emperor Tianhui, and was known to be strict with his new post. He started a new round of manhunts that left everyone on edge. Emperor Tianhui doted on Chu Qingge again. He was already prepared for this, so after a round of pillow talk from Chu Qingge, he finally gave the Imperial Guards a special order to search the residences of the various members of the Imperial clan. After all, the Imperial Guards were limited in their search of the various residences before this. Once the news spread, all of the upper-class nobles were thrown into an uproar. Meanwhile, the Duke of Qin's estate was the quietest. Wang Fei wasn't at home, while His Highness Duke of Qin was in closed-door cultivation. Su Xiaoyu had returned because Pill Fiend Pharmacy had stopped working. She spent all day with Zhao Mama, the two of them looking at each other in silence. As for the Han estate, Han Yunqi hadn't said a word for days. To outsiders, it looked like she was hiding in her rooms to sleep, but in reality, she'd locked herself up in the large space of the detox system. Back in the black market, she'd mixed perplexing butterfly illusion and beauty's tears into the poison pond before leaving them in the detox system. She was supposed to hide in there for some peace and quiet, but discovered that the three poisons seemed to be reacting with each other. Although she wasn't sure what was going on, she could sense that the perplexing butterfly illusion's corrosive properties were weakening. Of course, there were plenty of other things she could do in the detox system, such as manually organizing the massive storehouse of medicinal ingredients. In the past, she'd make herself busy whenever she was in a bad mood. She'd be very busy, but the busier she was, the better she felt. That was why she couldn't care less about her moods. But damn it, why did she keep making mistakes this time? She'd actually messed up the orderly storehouse until it was a complete mess. In the end, she had no choice but to waste her brain power to have the system tidy things up. After that, she'd start messing around again, messing things up. If Long Fei Yi found out one day that she was hiding in the Han estate, what would his reaction be? Today, Long Fei Yi emerged from his closed-door cultivation, half of his injuries healed. As soon as he emerged, Chu Tianyin came with news. Your Highness, as you expected, the Chu clan has made their move. Are you done packing? Long Fei asked mildly. Everything's been packed. Just, Chu Tianyin didn't dare to continue. Without a doubt, everything under His Highness's name had been taken care of except for one woman. It wasn't clear whether Long Fei Yi knew what he meant, but he only said coldly, You should make preparations as well. Your lordship will leave the city tonight. All right, Chu Tianyin could only pretend he hadn't said a word. That night, something big happened at the general's estate. The commander of the Imperial Guards led a group of men to personally search the estate and found dozens of crossbow archers hiding in an abandoned latrine in the rear courtyard. Of course, the archers had fled, but Meng Zhan had personally shot 2 of them. News of this sent the entire city into an uproar. Meng Zhan sent men to chase after the archers while surrounding General Mu's estate. Emperor Tianhui was furious. That very night, he issued orders to strip the Mu father and son of their authority as generals, take back all command tokens, and imprison them in the justice courts to await trial. But just as the Mu father and son were being escorted to the imperial prisons, 3 cannon blasts came from outside the city. The cannoneers had rebelled first. For a moment, the entire capital city was thrown into chaos. The Mu father and son had no choice but to join forces with the old imperial guards and officially raise their troops on their way to the imperial prisons. When there was a mutiny in the capital, attacking the imperial palace was their first priority. Emperor Tianhui spat out a mouthful of blood in his imperial study. Fortunately, more than half of the imperial guards were on hand to hold back the enemy. Chu Qingge never expected things to get so serious, while the hidden Chu Tianyin was even more surprised. Everything had gone according to plan, but Long Tianma's move had ruined all of his efforts. Everyone fled in the chaos of the night, but the Han estate had long been deserted. Where was everyone? Chapter 502. Where were the Han family members? Where was Han Yunshi? When there was a coup d'état, it was common to take advantage of the chaos to burn, kill, and plunder. Amidst the chaos, Long Tianma still had the time to send people to protect her. Qin Wangfei had been living in the Han family for a few days, and those who cared about her knew about it. Unfortunately, Long Tianma's trusted aide came empty-handed. As soon as she left, Mu Qinggu sent over his trusted aide from the imperial army. Unfortunately, there was also no one to be seen. In reality, the first to arrive wasn't Long Tianma and Mu Qingwu's men, but Gu. However, Gu had already turned the Han family upside down, but there was no sign of Han Yunshi. Where was she? Of course, this group of people had all gone to the Duke of Qin's residence. Only then did they find out that the Duke of Qin's residence was also empty. Such a coincidence must have been the Duke of Qin's doing. Long Tianma and Mu Qingwu received this news just as they were about to attack the palace gates. Mu Qingwu didn't say anything, but Long Tianma sighed softly. All of this. In the end, it couldn't escape Imperial Uncle Qin's control. The Duke of Qin was able to leave the city early and evacuate so cleanly, leaving both residences empty. Without a doubt, he had long predicted that Long Tianma would raise an army to rebel and had long made preparations. Long Tianma finally understood why Imperial Father had made such a big move this time and put the Mu family to death. Imperial Uncle Qin must have played a part in this. He knew that, in this game, he had also become Imperial Uncle Qin's chess piece, but he didn't care. Without Imperial Uncle Qin adding fuel to the fire, how could General Mu have been forced to jump over the wall? Everyone felt that this coup d'état was sudden, but he felt that it was too slow and too late. Resentment had been brewing in his heart for a long time. While they were attacking the palace gates, the sound of cannons came from the other side. Without a doubt, the city gates had been breached. Once the cannons arrived, they were invincible. Who could stop them? As the cannons rumbled, the morale of the Crown Prince's army was greatly boosted. The huge wooden stakes slammed into the thick and heavy palace gates with loud bangs. It looked like the gates were about to be smashed open. Inside the palace, Emperor Tianhui was sitting in his imperial study, but the various concubines and servants had long packed up their valuables and fled. Of course, there were plenty of loyal servants who stood guard outside the study, swearing to follow Emperor Tianhui to their deaths. Currently, a few important officials and the commander of the Imperial Guard, Meng Zhan, were all in the imperial study, urging Emperor Tianhui to retreat. Emperor Tianhui's face was ashen white as blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. He'd been plagued with illness for the past 6 months, but tonight's blow had aged him overnight. A man in his 40s looked even older than a man in his 50s or 60s. Hearing the chaos outside, the hands hidden in his sleeves trembled uncontrollably. Perhaps it was anger, or perhaps it was fear. "Your Majesty, the palace gates are about to be breached. Let's go." "Your Majesty, it'll be too late if we don't retreat now. The Crown Prince and the Mu family have committed treason and heresy. They have sent troops without justification and will definitely lose the support of the people. This humble subject boldly suggests that Your Majesty move the capital to Xijing and mobilize the elite troops from the central and western regions to surround the rebel army. Tonight, we've only lost a single city." Hearing Meng Zhan's words, Emperor Tianhui recovered from his shock. Meng Zhan was right. Tonight, they'd only lost the capital. If they didn't leave now, they'd lose all of Tianning. The Crown Prince had gained the upper hand in the capital only because he had the 1st Artillery Corps. But Tianning had more than one artillery corps. The capital, northwest, and central regions each had their own 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Artillery Corps. Although the Mu family had been in charge of the foot soldiers for years, not all of them were trusted subordinates of the Mu family. After the mutiny, the various generals stationed in the various regions would naturally choose a better tree to live in. Not all of them were under the Mu family's control. In the end, Emperor Tianhui was still able to stabilize the situation. He immediately ordered a retreat, but the palace had already been breached. Both the east and west gates had been blocked off, leaving only the north and south escape routes. In the midst of the chaos, Chu Qingge gave Emperor Tianhui an idea. Emperor Tianhui immediately decided to disguise himself as a eunuch and had Meng Zhan and the rest disguise themselves as his bodyguards. They mixed into the fleeing servants and escaped through the north gate. Meanwhile, all of the servants and family members were to escape through the south gate to lure away the rebel army. Just as Emperor Tianhui was about to leave, Chu Qingge stepped forward. "Your Majesty, Qinxie may be so bold as to make a presumptuous request." Faced with imminent disaster, Emperor Tianhui was in no mood to be good-tempered. "What is it?" he asked coldly. "Qinxie wants to disguise as you and head for the south gate. First, I'll lure away the Crown Prince and the rest. Second, I'll wait for a chance to kill them all," Chu Qingge said seriously. At her words, everyone remembered that this noble consort knew martial arts as well. Moreover, her archery skills were top-notch. Finding a eunuch to pretend to be Emperor Tianhui to lure away the rebel army might not buy them much time. If Chu Qingge was the one doing the job, she might even have a chance to turn the tables. Once the Crown Prince died, the dragons would be leaderless and the situation would be completely different. Emperor Tianhui was thrilled. "All right, as long as you kill that unfilial son for Jin, you'll be Tianning's empress." "Empress?" Chu Qingge's heart filled with bitterness. She wanted nothing more than for Emperor Tianhui to die in the chaos, but she had no choice but to protect him, if for no other reason than the fact that she wasn't pregnant with Tianhui's child yet. "As long as Your Majesty is safe and sound, Qinxie will be perfectly satisfied," Chu Qingge said against her will. Emperor Tianhui was deeply moved. He gripped Chu Qingge's hand tightly and said, "Qing Zhen will wait for you at the 7-li bridge outside the city." Chu Qingge nodded and slipped his hand out of her grasp. Then she turned and left. The flames of war in the capital city burned for days and nights. Rumors said that on the night of the rebellion, the Crown Prince hadn't even caught up to Emperor Tianhui before he was ambushed by a high-level expert. Fortunately, a group of black-robed guards helped him survive. Another rumor said that General Mu had caught up to Emperor Tianhui himself and killed him at the south gate. Another rumor said that Emperor Tianhui hadn't died, but had long escaped from the north gate. Instead, it was General Mu who'd been killed by Meng Zhan in the chaos. The flames of war burned for 5 days and 5 nights. As the capital city grew calm, many of the preposterous rumors were dispelled. Actually, Emperor Tianhui had successfully escaped from the capital while Chu Qingge had run into General Mu. Both of them had been injured in their duel. While Emperor Tianhui was still on his way to West Jing, the Crown Prince had declared himself emperor in the capital city. On one hand, he continued to chase after Emperor Tianhui, while on the other, he actively recruited powerful officials and local powers. While the capital was in chaos, Tianning's various powers began to express their views. Some denounced the crown prince, some pledged their support to Emperor Tianhui, while others supported the crown prince and defected to Tianhui's side. Still, it was impossible to ignore the fact that the powers of the central regions in Jiangnan, whether it was the military or the large counties and prefectures, all pushed His Highness Duke of Qin forward and supported him as emperor. Hearing the news, Emperor Tianhui viciously smashed a teacup in his carriage. Duke of Qin. He seemed to suddenly realize something as rage filled his heart. It took him a long time to recover before he spat up a mouthful of blood and fainted. Imperial Physician Gu. Quick! Find Imperial Physician Gu! Chu Qingge shouted. But no one found Gu Beiyue, the Imperial Physician. Nobody knew that Gu Beiyue had been the first to leave the palace on the night of the coup. Although Long Tianma had long expected this, he still couldn't help but clench his fists when he heard the news. His expression was gloomy for days. After all, Tianning's central regions only had 3 prefectures, but they were all extremely large and populous. Meanwhile, Tianning's Jiangnan was not only Tianning's most fertile land, but also the richest in all of Cloud Realm continent. It was a land of fish and rice, rich in natural resources. In other words, it had a lot of people and plenty of grain. Father and son had fought each other to the death, but the Duke of Qin had gotten the most out of it without any effort at all. Emperor Tianhui denounced Long Tianma and the Mu family for treason and heresy for usurping the throne. Long Tianma immediately retorted by accusing Emperor Tianhui of listening to slander and failing to distinguish right from wrong by framing and killing loyal subjects. Father and son fought each other to death, but the Duke of Qin didn't say a word. He kept a low profile, but his voice was the loudest and most popular. A month later, Tianning's situation had settled. Emperor Tianhui had taken control of the 10 prefectures in the northwest from Westliang and used the name of Tianning. Long Tianma had taken over the capital and 7 prefectures in the northeast and used the name of Tian'an. Meanwhile, the central and southern regions remained as they were. No one dared to seek refuge with Tianning or Tian'an, much less rise up in rebellion. Very soon, rumors began to spread that the Duke of Qin would attack the capital and swallow up the 10 prefectures in the northwest. Both Emperor Tianhui and Long Tianma grew restless, while the armies of Jiangnan and the central regions grew restless. But, in reality, no one knew where His Highness Duke of Qin was. After that night in the capital, His Highness Duke of Qin seemed to have vanished into thin air. He never showed his face in public again. Meanwhile, Han Yunqi was still sitting in her carriage. She knew what was going on as soon as she saw the chaos in the capital. It wasn't because she was smart, but because she'd gotten a good grasp of Long Fei Ye's methods after interacting with him for so long. When she overheard the conversation between Long Fei Yi and Emperor Tianhui in the imperial study, she already knew which move the Long Fei Yi would make. She was about to tell 7th Madame to pack up and leave when the Bailey Army's mermaid soldiers suddenly appeared and took them out of the city via the waterways. After leaving the city, 7th Madame and the rest were arranged to take a different route while she boarded the carriage alone. The mermaid soldiers said that His Highness Duke of Qin wanted to see her. Who knew that they'd end up traveling for an entire month towards the south? It was more like a sightseeing trip, with beautiful scenery along the way. Occasionally, they'd hear news about Emperor Tianhui and Long Tianma, but Han Yunqi wasn't in the mood to pay attention to such details. She was very quiet the entire time. At first, she didn't ask any questions, but allowed the mermaid soldiers to arrange things. All she did was follow them, and when she was bored, she'd hide in the detox system and sleep for an entire afternoon. But gradually, she couldn't take it anymore. Long Fei Yi said he wanted to see her, but where was he? Where was he? Where was he? She asked the mermaid soldiers multiple times, but none of them knew. All they said was that His Highness Duke of Qin had ordered them to head towards South Ning Prefecture. Didn't that bastard allow her to go back to the Han estate? Why was he still looking for her? If he wanted to find her, then so be it. Why did he have her head south for so long without showing his face? Just what did he want? Han Yunqi was so angry that she almost poisoned the mermaid soldiers and fled. But she didn't. Instead, she grew even more taciturn and didn't ask any questions. Until one day, the carriage slowly came to a stop in front of an estate. "Esteemed Wang Fei, please get off the carriage," the mermaid soldier reported in a low voice. Han Yunqi had just emerged from the detox system and was still groggy. She got off the carriage as soon as she heard the words "get off," but she froze when she saw the familiar doors. Chapter 503. Aside from the Duke of Qin's estate, this was the place where Han Yunqi had lived the longest. Even the Han estate couldn't compare to this place. Han Yunqi stood at the entrance, staring blankly at the large horizontal board. Here, he had stood behind her and recited the poem, Divinator? Praise of the Plum Blossoms. Here, he had asked her what was precious. She had replied, "If one wishes to obtain the heart of one, they will never part even when their hair turns white." Here, she had gotten used to leaning on his shoulder to sleep. He had accompanied her through Tianning's coldest winter. This was the famous Jiangnan Plum Blossom Sea, the most famous of Jiangnan's 3 great gardens. It was named after the plum blossoms that bloomed like a sea every winter and spring. This place was the New Year's gift from Long Fei Yi to her. She had kept the command tablet in her medical pouch. Everything from last winter was still vivid in her mind. When she left, she had wondered if she could stay for another season, but, Long Fei Yi, summer hasn't even passed yet. How did we become like this? Are you in the estate? Esteemed Wang Fei, please. The mermaid soldier presented the command tablet to the Plum Blossom Gardens, interrupting Han Yunqi's thoughts. Without a doubt, the medical pouch was in his hands. He had taken the command tablet out of it. Han Yunqi was silent for a long time before she finally asked, "Is His Highness inside?" "Esteemed Wang Fei, please forgive me. This subordinate isn't clear. This subordinate only received orders to send you here yesterday," the mermaid soldier replied truthfully. Han Yunqi silently took the command tablet and stepped into Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea. Once inside, she hurried towards the small hot springs. She didn't know why she was in such a rush, but she was. She had almost rushed to the small hot springs when she came to an abrupt halt at the entrance. Only when she saw the emptiness of the small building did she regain her senses. He wasn't here. She smiled faintly, laughing at her own impatience. What was there to be anxious about? What was the difference between seeing him and not seeing him? He probably didn't want to see her, right? Otherwise, he would have come after promising her for a month, no matter how busy he was. But why did he leave her here in the Plum Blossom Sea? She couldn't even get him, so what was the point of these worldly things? Han Yunqi found a mermaid soldier. "Where is the Han family?" "His Highness has already arranged a residence in the South Ning County. Princess Consort, please be at ease." The mermaid soldier honestly replied, "Prepare the car. I'm going to South Ning," Han Yunqi said calmly. The mermaid soldiers did not receive any orders from His Highness, so they could only listen to their mistress. However, just as the carriage was ready, the sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds. Thunder rumbled, and a torrential downpour was imminent. Han Yunqi could only wait for the rain to stop. She sat on the doorstep and watched the rain get heavier. She unconsciously fell into a daze again. She didn't know that Long Fei Yi had been watching her from a distance. Over the past month, Tianning had been in turmoil, but this ruler of all things had done nothing. He had followed Han Yunqi's carriage from north to south, protecting her in secret and keeping her company in silence. He clearly said that he wanted to see her, and he clearly saw her all the time, but she didn't know. At this moment, she didn't know if he was looking at the rain, at her, or at a daze. His dark eyes were as deep and unfathomable as the sea. His brows were furrowed like swords. He could control the entire world, but not a single woman. Suddenly, a white shadow flew past Han Yunqi's back. Sensing the movement, Han Yunqi immediately turned back. Long Fei Yi wanted to leave, but it was too late. Han Yunqi had caught him red-handed. Lil Thing was panting as it pounced nearby. It had been struggling for a month to lure Mama Yunqi to see Papa Long, but had never found a chance. The rain had finally given it a chance. It only hoped that the next time Papa Long grabbed it by the tail, it wouldn't end up in such a miserable state. Han Yunqi never expected to see Long Fei Yi like this. She gave a start, feeling like she was dreaming. When she turned back, she saw him right behind her. Long Fei Yi glanced in the direction Lil Thing had flown off in before letting Han Yunqi look on without batting an eyelid. Damn it, the two of them were silent as soon as they met. In the end, Long Fei Yi simply turned to leave. "You! Stop right there," Han Yunqi said coldly. Long Fei Yi really did stop, his back especially silent. "What did you find me for?" Han Yunqi asked mildly. Long Fei Yi didn't reply. After standing there for a while, he prepared to leave. Han Yunqi watched him leave step by step before chasing after him into the rain. She reached him and threw the Plum Garden command token at him. "Give me back my medical pouch." Long Fei Yi didn't catch it, but the ceramic command token shattered into pieces. He looked down at the same time she did the same. Her palms began to ache as she stared at the fragments. "Fine," he finally spoke. She looked up at him, only to see him as usual, his face cold and still. "Your lordship will go get it. When will you bring it?" "I want to leave this place," she said cold. He was silent for a while before replying mildly, "I don't know." After saying that, he really left, disappearing into the curtain of rain. Han Yunqi stood in the rain in a daze. She felt like the whole world was raining, and it was raining cats and dogs. After the rain, Long Fei Yi disappeared, and Han Yunqi fell seriously ill. She had a severe cold and a high fever. The servant found a physician to take her pulse and prescribe medicine. Unfortunately, when the servant brought the medicine to her mouth, she flung it away and broke 3 big bowls in the morning. In the end, he had appeared. She woke up in a daze and saw him sitting by the bed, looking at her gently. She thought that she was dreaming again and quickly closed her eyes, afraid that she would wake up. "Drink the medicine." She woke up the moment he spoke. When she saw his silent face, she knew that this wasn't a dream. He personally fed the medicine to her mouth. She turned her head away, refusing to look at him. He still fed her the medicine, but she angrily picked it up and smashed it on the ground. "Long Fei Yi, what do you want?" "Drink the medicine," he said mildly. "Answer my question," she said angrily. After waiting for a month, he didn't say anything when they met and didn't allow her to leave. Was he playing with her? She had a high fever, and when she got angry, her face turned even redder. Just as she finished speaking, she coughed violently, coughing so hard that her heart and lungs hurt. His tone was anxious. "Drink the medicine first, then I'll answer you." "What if I don't?" She challenged him coldly. It wasn't that she was arrogant, but that she was so angry that she didn't feel well. He didn't say anything and suddenly drank a big mouthful of medicine. Then he grabbed her chin and fiercely sealed her mouth, passing the medicine over. She struggled desperately and hit him, but he didn't let go. After he finished feeding her the medicine in her mouth, he drank another big mouthful and continued. She was so angry that she threw a punch and accidentally hit him in the chest. At that moment, he immediately let go of her and turned his head away, spitting out a mouthful of blood. His internal injury had only recovered by 50%. How could he withstand such a close distance and a punch to the injury? She was instantly stunned. She stared blankly at his face that suddenly turned pale, not knowing what to do. What happened to him? He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and continued to feed her the medicine. "Finish it." "Long Fei Yi, you're injured?" she exclaimed. Although she didn't understand, she guessed that it was an internal injury when she saw that he didn't seem to be hurt. His martial arts were so good, so how could he have an internal injury? Who did it? How much strength could her fist have? Just one punch was enough to make him spit out blood. How serious was his injury? He ignored her question and was as stubborn as a child, refusing to give up. "Finish it." "What happened to you?" "What happened? Tell me. What have you been doing for the past month?" She anxiously pushed his hand away and wanted to check his chest, but he stubbornly brought the medicine over. "Finish it." Long Fei Yi, what happened to you? Tell me. Han Yunqi cried, her tears falling. At this moment, the fear and grievances of the past month all came rushing up. Long Fei Yi, what happened to you? What's wrong? He hastily wiped away her tears, but there was no end to them. I'm fine, he said mildly. Liar! She was so fierce. He clearly spat out blood, so how could he be fine? I'm really fine. Be good and drink the medicine first. He was still worried about the medicine. He couldn't ruin his body after all this time. I won't drink it. He couldn't do anything about her stubbornness, so he could only reply, Kenzo's men hurt me. It's nothing serious. Your master? Han Yunqi was stunned. Duanmu Yao couldn't hurt him. Few people in Tianshan Kenzo could either. Why did he leave with Duanmu Yao that day in such a hurry? He didn't even explain himself and didn't even let her follow him? No, it was martial uncle, Song Chiozi, he said mildly. If it wasn't about master, he would be willing to tell her. As for master, he wouldn't tell her, nor would he let her see him. What happened? Han Yunqi asked seriously. The internal strife between the sects has already been resolved. He was so calm and collected. If he'd fought with Song Chiozi, he wouldn't have been injured so badly. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me anything? She demanded. Things happened so suddenly. So speaking, he offered her the medicine again. I won't drink it. She pushed it aside. I'll take a look at your injuries. Drink the medicine first, he said seriously. She knitted her brows, her eyes red with tears as she didn't move. Helpless, he could only set the medicine down and take off his robes. Even after so long, she could still see the handprint on his chest, a testament to Song Chiozi's ruthlessness. Her heart ached at the sight, but she didn't dare to touch him for fear of hurting him. Just then, I really deserve to die. Drink the medicine first, won't you? He was close to begging her. He'd never begged anyone in his life before. The 3 prefectures of the central region and the 15 cities of Jiangnan were all waiting for his command. But here he was begging a woman to drink medicine. But this woman refused to drink it. You suspect that Gu and I aren't innocent. You're looking down on me. This wasn't a question, but a definite accusation. His hands stiffened. No, he said quickly. But he quickly added, I can't kill you, but I'll kill Gu Qishao. He did mind. I didn't do it on purpose. Back then, she hastily explained the situation to him. For the sake of avoiding that black-robed expert, she and Gu had no choice but to do so. Later on, she dressed Gu's wounds before putting on her clothes properly. That wasn't on purpose at all. Leaving aside the fact that it was her savior who'd been hurt, even if it wasn't, she couldn't care less in such an urgent situation. Gu's injuries were too severe, so saving him was a race against time. Despite her explanations, his face was still gloomy. I'll never forgive you. Drink the medicine. Chapter 504. I'll never forgive you. With a single sentence, he pronounced Han Yunqi's death sentence. Her eyes were red from crying as she stared at him innocently, as if she didn't understand the meaning of his words. Drink the medicine, he urged again. Whether Tianing was in Chaos or Cloud Realm continent, the most important thing in the world was the bowl of medicine in his hands. Han Yunqi stared at him for a long time, her lips pursed tightly. She didn't speak or drink. Long Fei Yi was probably the most patient person in his life. Be good. Don't make a fuss. The edge of the bowl was already pressed against Han Yunqi's lips, but she still didn't move. Drink it. He lowered his eyes, his temper so good that it seemed like he would never lose his temper. Only then did she speak. I really didn't do it on purpose. He avoided the topic. Drink the medicine. Will you forgive me? She asked seriously. There was no room for discussion, so he shook his head. She suddenly took the medicine and drank it all in one gulp. I finished drinking it. This Long Fei Yi was surprised and startled. He should have sighed in relief when she finished the medicine, but now his heart felt even more stifled. I finished it all, Han Yunqi said again. Long Fei Yi replied mildly. Unexpectedly, Han Yunqi said, You can leave now, Just who was sentencing who to death. Long Fei Yi stood rooted to the ground. Han Yunqi ignored him and lay down, covering herself with the covers and closing her eyes to sleep. The already quiet room grew even quieter, like a silent time. After a long, long time, Long Fei Yi finally got up. Was he really leaving? Yes, he was really leaving. He turned to leave step by step, away from the bed. Han Yunqi stole a glance and was about to get up when Long Fei Yi suddenly stopped. She hastily shut her eyes. Long Fei Yi stood at the same spot for a while before returning to sit by the bed. However, he did not speak and only looked at her. Not long after, Han Yunqi opened her eyes. Just as she was about to speak, he said, "I'll leave after you recover." Under the silk quilt, her hands were clenched tightly, but she replied nonchalantly, "Sure." He stayed just like that. This was like an unspoken agreement. He didn't mention anything about Gu, and she didn't chase after him to ask if he forgave her. He stayed by her bedside the entire day. Not only did he personally feed her medicine, he even fed her 3 meals. Every hour, he would touch her forehead to check if her fever had subsided. She was lying down and he was sitting. The two of them did not speak for the entire day, but it was not awkward at all. At night, her fever had not completely subsided. He gently touched her forehead, as if he could not feel it. He leaned close to her and gently lifted her bangs. He pressed his face against her forehead to feel her temperature, and casually said, "It seems to be quite hot." His smooth chin was right above the tip of her nose. At such a close distance, she could smell the most familiar scent. She said, "It should have subsided. I'll be fine tomorrow after a good night's sleep. Don't worry." He retreated, not forgetting to tidy up her bangs. His slender and good-looking fingers gently played with her hair. It was so gentle that it did not seem like him, Long Fei Yi. It was clearly just a small amount of bangs, but he fiddled with them for a long time. She did not move or make a sound, allowing him to do as he pleased. In the end, he still had to stop. Once he let go, her heart felt empty. "Let me see the wound on your shoulder." He actually remembered it all along. It's healed. There's only a little scar left. It had been a month, and the white-clothed gentleman's medicine was very effective. "Let this prince take a look." He insisted. She could only take off her clothes and reveal her shoulder. As she said, the wound had completely healed, leaving only a shallow scar. He gently caressed it. She turned her head away, afraid that she would succumb to the gentleness in his hands. "I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose," he said mildly. After a while, she said, "It's okay. I forgive you." His hand froze on her shoulder. She pushed it away without a trace, put on her clothes, and lazily snuggled into the blankets. "Aren't you going to treat your wound?" she asked. "Wait until you're asleep," he said. Thus, she immediately turned her back to him to sleep. He sat cross-legged on a short couch and treated his wound for an entire night. She kept her eyes open until dawn with her back facing him. They had agreed that they would leave once they were well. No matter how severe the typhoid or cold was, it would always get better, right? She turned over and saw him looking at her. Just like last night, he leaned over and pressed his cold cheek against her forehead. It subsided. He was very sure. She coughed a few times. She was very clear that as long as she took her medicine on time, she would be fine in at most 3 days. "Let the doctor take a look again," he said again. She answered mildly. When the doctor came, he actually said that her body was in good condition. He said that she would be fine after taking her medicine for another day. Her originally weak body had long been nourished by him using old hens and lobsters. Moreover, the medicine that the doctor prescribed for her were all treasures that took effect quickly. It was really impossible for her to stay sick forever. She was originally not someone who could lie down. She could clearly get out of bed, but she lay down for another day. On this day, he even personally attended to her. Not a single servant girl was allowed to enter. After feeding her medicine, he sat at the side and treated her wound. She quietly looked at him. Suddenly, She had an illusion that they were back in the cold winter of last year. 100 steps. Compared to this time, which was closer and which was further. The next morning, Han Yunxi fully recovered. She decisively got out of bed and said straightforwardly, "Long Fei Yi, I'm fine." Long Fei Yi nodded. After a moment, he took out a command token. It was none other than the Plum Sea command token that had been smashed into pieces. He had actually fixed it back together. Although it was full of cracks, it was still intact. He said, "If you don't want to return to the Duke of Qin's residence, how about returning to Jiangnan's Plum Sea?" Han Yunxi's heart clenched slightly. Looking at Long Fei Ye's face, which had been silent for 2 days, she felt her heart ache for no reason. Jiangnan's Plum Sea already belonged to her, but it was still given to her by him. Was it any different from returning to the Duke of Qin's residence? Okay. She agreed just like that and took back the command token. He lowered his head and turned to leave. He left. He left just like that. Bastard. You really left when I told you to. Han Yunxi's heart fiercely skipped a beat. Without thinking, she chased after Long Fei Yi from behind and hugged him tightly around his waist. "If you'll never forgive me, can you pretend to forgive me for a while?" He pulled her hand as if to pull it away. She hugged him even tighter in fright. "Can I?" Long Fei Yi still pulled her away and turned around to look at her with furrowed brows. Han Yunxi was flustered. Her heart felt stifled, and even breathing became difficult. He actually looked helpless as he said mildly, "This prince only wants to get the medical kit. You don't be anxious." Han Yunxi was stunned on the spot. She suddenly didn't know what to say. Long Fei Yi couldn't help but stroke her bangs when he saw her dazed expression. "Since you want to pretend, then pretend for the rest of your life." Han Yunxi almost cried. He shouldn't bully her like this. She was really frightened. "Long Fei Yi, how can you be so bad?" She was about to cry, but he still asked her seriously, "What do you think? Is this okay?" She didn't say anything and just looked at him. She was clearly about to cry, but she smiled. He still held her hand like before. Their fingers intertwined as they strolled through the plum blossom forest. She was still panicking as she sorted out her messy thoughts. She thought that she really liked this man. Otherwise, why didn't she just walk away? Why would she be bullied to this extent? She looked up and saw his naturally cold side profile. At this moment, what was he thinking? "Long Fei Yi," she spoke softly. Many years later, she would forget that it was from this moment onwards that she no longer called this man Your Highness, but directly called him by his name. He looked over. "What are you thinking about?" After the quarrel, she was less cautious than before. "I'm thinking about the antidote for broomcorn millet poison. Do you believe me?" Long Fei Yi said mildly. Han Yunxi only remembered this matter now. Gu's words were still ringing in her ears, and Long Fei Ye's attitude was like this. Who should she believe? Long Fei Yi stopped and asked forcefully, "Do you believe me?" "Believe what?" Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded. Han Yunxi looked back and saw the Tang clan's young head, Tang Li, whom she hadn't seen in a long time. This fellow was still dressed in white and had an immortal-like temperament, but he still ruined his good temperament with a single word. "Han Yunxi, you're finally not throwing a tantrum anymore?" Tang Li asked with a smile. Han Yunxi not only pretended not to hear, but also not to see him. She turned her head away and ignored him. "Han Yunxi, Aunt Ru was right to scold you. You're a femme fatale. Do you know how many people in Jiangnan and the central regions are waiting for my brother to declare himself an emperor and establish a country?" Tang Li was about to continue when Long Fei Ye's cold gaze silenced him. Han Yunxi said coldly, "Your brother won't declare himself an emperor, much less establish a country. You're thinking too much. A trifling 3 prefectures in the central regions and 15 cities in Jiangnan were nothing in Long Fei Ye's eyes. If he wanted to declare himself an emperor and establish a country, he'd have to conquer all of Cloud Realm continent. Long Fei Yi looked at Han Yunxi with interest. "How did you know?" "Your Highness, the 3 prefectures in the central regions and the 15 cities in Jiangnan have long been under your control. What difference does it make whether you make a move or not? If you don't declare yourself an emperor and establish a country, you'll be able to give Long Tianma and Tianhui some thought. Who wouldn't covet the people in the central regions and Jiangnan's granary? Han Yunqi smiled as she spoke. Anyone who covets the things in someone else's hands will be used by that person. Long Fei Yi applauded Han Yunqi 3 times. Although he didn't say anything, he'd already made his stance clear. Besides this woman, there was probably no one else who could read his thoughts so thoroughly. He could have used Long Tianma and the Mu family to take over all of Tianning, but he wasn't in a rush. Without Emperor Tianhui and Long Tianma, who would help him deal with Western Zhou and Northern Li? Tang Li didn't have such a good head for politics, but he understood after listening to Han Yunqi's analysis. He sighed with emotion. Han Yunqi, you really aren't stupid except when you're jealous. If you get jealous so easily, you might turn into an idiot. You! Han Yunqi grew angry. Oh, that's right. You turn into an idiot too when you're bewitched by a man's charms. Tang Li couldn't seem to stop teasing her. Try spouting more nonsense. Han Yunqi narrowed her eyes dangerously. How am I spouting nonsense? Just then, you were talking about goo, weren't you? You're so smart, but you still can't figure it out. Gu Qishao had purposely mixed in the powder that would turn the bottle black. You're saying he just wants to keep the antidote for himself? He's clearly plotting to drive a wedge between the two of you, Tang Li said seriously. Chapter 505. What was Gu's motive for doing this? Han Yunqi frowned and stared at Tang Li. Tang Li asked again. He obviously knew what you were capable of. Yet he added so much powder. He obviously did it on purpose to lure you over. Let's take a step back and say that if my brother really lied to you, he really knew something. Why didn't he just show you the evidence directly? Why did he go through so much trouble? That guy is just trying to drive a wedge between you and me. Han Yunqi's expression was complicated. Long Fei Yi remained silent. Tang Li's words were not false at all. That was exactly what Gu meant. And it was precisely because of this that Gu suffered a tragedy in this matter. Han Yunqi had already considered these 2 points. After listening to Tang Li's analysis, the scales in her heart finally tilted. If there were suspicions, Gu was indeed more suspicious. Han Yunqi did not say anything for a long time. Long Fei Yi stared at her with his lips pursed tightly. He looked quite serious. So I'm not talking nonsense, right? Tang Li pulled the topic back and sighed. My brother is so good-looking. How can he lose to Gu? Even if you're seduced by men, you'll still be seduced by my brother. This time, Han Yunqi narrowed her eyes again. However, Tang Li seemed to be addicted to talking. He said again, Han Yunqi, you're a married woman. You have to take. Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly could not make a sound. His mouth kept moving. He tried his best to say something, but he could not make a single sound. Was he mute? Han Yunqi glanced at him and said coldly, your mouth must be tired from talking so much. Take a rest. We'll talk again tomorrow. After she finished speaking, she held Long Fei Yi's hand. Let's go and get the medical kit. Would Long Fei Yi save Tang Li? Obviously not. Although Tang Li had helped him with Gu's matter, he still felt that Tang Li talked too much. Han Yunqi held onto Long Fei Yi's hand and walked at a leisurely pace. As she walked, her mind wandered. She was undoubtedly pondering about the antidote for the broomcorn millet poison. Long Fei Yi did not say anything. He knew that Tang Li's words were enough. Gu had the ability to find out that Mute Granny was imprisoned by him in the U Pavilion, but he did not directly bring Han Yunqi there. There was no doubt that he wanted to hide his abilities. Why didn't he reveal his true abilities after being shot by the crossbowman like a hedgehog? What does it have to do with Medical City or the poison sex poison Gu humans if he didn't die after being stabbed in the heart? He was very interested. Long Fei Yi didn't ask about the antidote to broomcorn millet poison, and Han Yunqi didn't mention it again. Perhaps she already had a judgment in her heart. Was Mute Granny's matter over just like that? Or perhaps the truth would come to light one day. To Long Fei Yi and Gu, who was the 10% antidote to broomcorn millet poison a blessing or a curse? The truth would come to light one day. The only thing she was certain of was that something big had happened between Long Fei and Gu Qishao. After Han Yunqi got the medical kit, she took out a bottle of vitality-stabilizing medicinal pills and gave it to Long Fei Yi. She couldn't help with his internal injuries, but she should at least nourish his body. The next day, the mute Tang Li was finally liberated and could speak again. He was so frightened that he decided to stay 10 steps away from Han Yunqi whenever he saw her in the future. What do you mean by only vile people and women are hard to raise? It's just that the Duke of Qin's women are hard to raise. Too scary. Brother, you better be careful in the future. She might poison you to death one day, Tang Li reminded him seriously. Long Fei Yi pretended not to hear him and asked cold, "How's my master?" "Same as always." Tang Li immediately denied it. No. It's a lot better than before because Duan Muyao is here." Long Fei Yi banged the table heavily and didn't say anything. "Brother, Tianshan Kenzo's matter is more troublesome than usual. It's better if you don't get involved." Tang Li wasn't joking. Long Fei Yi nodded and asked, "Is there any progress with the 100 Poison sect?" Tang Li shook his head. "Even the Wang family can't get in touch with the person who snuck in. I think things aren't looking good." Junie Xie hadn't made any moves since leaving Fishery Island. This made Long Fei Yi rather uneasy, but he still couldn't make up his mind to deal with any changes. Perhaps it was a good thing that Junie Xie wasn't making any moves. At least he had time to finish playing Tianning's game of chess. While Tianning was still in turmoil, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi had settled down in Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea. Unlike last winter's cautiousness, Han Yunqi was more or less acting like a lady of the house. Long Fei Yi had given her a group of shadow guards, and she'd stolen a large batch of hidden weapons from Tang Li. After dipping them in poison, she gave them to the shadow guards and taught them some basic poison arts. Of course, while she was busy, she was also quietly studying the perplexing butterfly illusion. Long Fei Yi, on the other hand, spent most of his time recuperating from his injuries besides brewing tea and reading scrolls. It was already good enough that he hadn't succumbed to qi deviation, but it'd take him at least 2 to 3 months to fully recover. By then, Han Yunqi's poison guards had finished training. Long Fei Yi's injuries were more or less healed, and Tianning's situation had more or less stabilized. The north was divided into 2 countries, with the Shaoshui River as the boundary. West of the river was Tianning, whose capital was West Jing. East of the river was Tianan, whose capital had been renamed Tianan City. Emperor Tianhui had made Chu Qingge empress and received the support of the Western Zhou Emperor. Rumors had it that Chu Qingge was pregnant with a dragon seed, but only the people involved knew the truth. Long Tianma had made Mu Luiyue empress, while the empress from the western mountains had been brought back to the palace. Rumors had it that Mu Luiyue and the empress were living together, but that remained to be seen. Today, Long Fei Yi asked Han Yunqi, "Are you willing to go back to the estate?" "Go back to the estate?" Han Yunqi was surprised. Although Long Tianma had confiscated many of Tianan's estates, he hadn't touched the Duke of Qin's estate. He didn't dare to. Han Yunqi had even heard that the Han estate was fine and that no one had dared to barge in. Even if Long Tianma came to invite him, Long Fei Yi wouldn't go back at a time like this, much less Long Tianma's absence. Go back to the estate? Back to which estate? Do you want to go back? Long Fei Yi asked again. This fellow still remembered how she'd returned to her parents' home in a fit of pique. Of course, let's go. Han Yunqi didn't ask, waiting to see where he'd take her. Unexpectedly, Long Fei Yi really did take her out the door. The late autumn winds were strong. He untied his cloak and wrapped it around her. Just like before, he led her into the carriage. Only after the carriage had gone far away did a fiery red figure appear on the high walls of Jiangnan's Plum Sea. His red robes were like fire, fluttering in the wind. Who else could it be but Gu? Inside the carriage, Long Fei was the same as before. He ignored her as he leaned back in his seat and flipped through a few secret missives. She burrowed into his arms and read with him. These letters came from Northern Li, Western Zhou, Medicine City, and even Medical City. It had to be said that this fellow had eyes and ears all over Cloud Realm continent. Soon they entered southern Ning City. As soon as the carriage stopped, there was a commotion all around. Han Yunqi got off her horse to take a look and gave a start. In front of her was a brand new estate. 2 large lions stood at the entrance, and the 4-meter-wide vermilion door exuded a dignified aura. The plaque above the door clearly read, Duke of Qin's estate. Return to the Duke of Qin's estate. How did she become so stupid? Han Yunqi suddenly realized that some of Tang Li's words seemed to make a bit of sense. Long Fei Yi didn't proclaim himself emperor, nor did he divide his power. Instead, he built a Duke of Qin's estate in southern Ning, the largest prefecture in the central region. This made those people ponder over his intentions. Han Yunqi didn't have time to look, because a group of people had already gathered around them. Among them were high-ranking officials, military generals, and even some of the more influential and famous families. Long Fei Ye's estate was originally a temporary imperial residence. Since the renovation started 2 to 3 months ago, this group of people had been guarding it every day, waiting for him to show his face. The central region and Jiangnan were like a group of dragons without a leader. This group of people had been waiting for the stars and the moon. Finally, their master had arrived. There were at least 10 people, and all of them had prominent statuses. Unfortunately, Long Fei Yi dismissed them with a single sentence. This prince is used to being idle and can't manage such a big matter. You can all go back. While everyone was still in shock, Long Fei Yi had already led Han Yunqi into the estate. Han Yunqi inadvertently turned around to take a look. She unexpectedly met many reproachful and resentful gazes. She couldn't help but shiver. She thought that Long Fei Yi was so idle, so there were probably many people who scolded her for being a femme fatale. This estate wasn't as big as the Duke of Qin's estate in Tian and City. It also wasn't divided into many courtyards. There was only one independent courtyard named Leisurely Cloud Courtyard. However, everything in Leisurely Cloud Courtyard was exactly the same as the Hibiscus Courtyard. There was a mysterious palace and a loft. As soon as Han Yunqi and Long Fei Yi arrived, Zhao Mama and the rest arrived as well. Each of them was happier than the other when they saw Han Yunqi. Although they didn't know how their mistresses had made up, it was good enough, wasn't it? Han Yunqi happily settled in. A few days later, all 3 clans in Medicine City sent letters asking to meet with Han Yunqi and Long Fei Yi. Without a doubt, they were here for the sake of Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Han Yunqi hadn't forgotten about Pill Fiend Pharmacy, but she didn't know how to tell Long Fei about it. After all, Pill Fiend Pharmacy involved Gu Qishao, who seemed to have gone missing. Even now, there was no news of him. After reading the letter, Long Fei generously sent Chu Shifeng to Pill Fiend Valley to deliver the message to Gu Qishao. If he didn't show up, then they'd have full authority over Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Han Yunqi looked at Long Fei Yi and wanted to say something, but didn't in the end. Her heart was filled with complicated feelings towards Gu Qishao. Leaving aside everything else, Gu Qishao had at least saved her life. If possible, Han Yunqi didn't want to lose him as a friend. Very soon, Chu Shifeng returned. Your Highness, esteemed Wang Fei, Gu isn't at Medicine Ghost Valley, but he left word that he won't care about Pill Fiend Pharmacy anymore. He only needs to deliver the silver to Medicine Ghost Valley on time. This doesn't seem like Gu's style at all. Someone come, invite the 3 clans of Medicine City to meet with South Ning's Pill Fiend Pharmacy, Long Fei Yi ordered. Now Han Yunqi was astonished. Since when did South Ning have a Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Tian and City's Pill Fiend Pharmacy hadn't even been built yet. Today, Long Fei Yi brought her to a large, nameless estate near the Duke of Qin's estate. It had a spacious storefront, hidden storerooms, and many side rooms. Han Yunqi finally realized that Long Fei Yi had long ordered people to start building Pill Fiend Pharmacy in South Ning Prefecture. However, construction had stopped for a long time and only resumed 2 months ago. Now it was all finished and waiting for the sign to be hung up. You can hang up the sign after we've finished our negotiations with Medicine City, Long Fei Yi said. Han Yunqi looked at him as her heart warmed. This guy really is considerate. Han Yunqi looked around with Long Fei Yi by her side. But when they reached the courtyard, they suddenly heard a resolute voice from next door. Even if I die here today, I won't go back. Chapter 506. She'd rather die than go back? Han Yunchi was just thinking about the familiar voice when Long Fei Yi spoke up. It's her again. Yes, it's her again, Mu Ling-er. Long Fei Yi's tone made it clear that he didn't want to meddle in other people's business, but Han Yunchi was a bit worried about this girl. Moreover, Mu Ling-er was a genius pharmacist, and Pill Fiend Pharmacy needed her. She smiled and said, Long Fei Yi, why don't you climb the wall and take a look? Climb the wall. When had he, Long Fei Yi, ever climbed a wall? With Han Yunchi in his arms, he silently flew up to a tree in the neighboring courtyard. From where he stood, he could see everything clearly. Han Yunchi suddenly felt that it would be great if she had a personal bodyguard like Long Fei Yi. Actually, she already had one, didn't she? The person in the courtyard was indeed Mu Ling-er. At this moment, she was holding a dagger to her neck. The young man standing in front of her was dressed in bright clothes and had the appearance of a hedonistic son of a wealthy family. Behind him were a dozen or so sword-wielding bodyguards. His aura was fierce and overbearing. Stinking girl, do you think this young master can't do anything to you if you threaten me with death? The young man's insufferably arrogant attitude could only be described with his nose in the air. I'm not joking with you. If I die, do you think father will spare you? Mu Ling-er questioned loudly. At this point, Han Yunchi more or less understood what was going on. Mu Ling-er had offended the entire Medicine City because of the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet and had been pursued by them for over a year now. In the past year, her father, Mu Ling-er, probably helped her block a lot of things. However, when Han Yunchi heard that Mu Ling-er was short of money, she knew that her father couldn't withstand the pressure and wanted her to go back. If Han Yunchi guessed correctly, Mu Yingdong must have created the illusion of Mu Ling-er's death, and then secretly imprisoned Mu Ling-er for the rest of her life so that she could continue to be loyal to the Mu family. Han Yunchi couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Being born in a big family, if one was too useless, one would be discriminated against. If one was too dazzling, there would be all kinds of thoughts. Ha ha ha! Do you think this young master will let my father know? The young man's laughter pulled Han Yunchi back from her thoughts. She saw Mu Ling-er's dagger was really going to stab her neck. Miss Zhou, a guard shouted, but unfortunately, the young man slapped him and angrily said, What are you stopping me for? If you want to die, then die with her. As he spoke, he dragged the guard out and kicked him to Mu Ling-er's side. The guard was angry, but he didn't dare to say anything. He got up and resentfully stood to the side, not daring to make a sound. Mu Chaoran, don't go too far, Mu Ling-er angrily said. Mu Chaoran. Han Yunchi was stunned at first, but then she almost laughed out loud. What a coincidence! They had just made an appointment with the 3 medicine clans to discuss the sale of low-quality ingredients at Pill Fiend Pharmacy when this guy showed up, right next to it. After all, most of the shady dealings between Medicine City and the black market were done by this young master of the Mu family. If they wanted to have a smooth negotiation with Medicine City, especially the Mu family, they naturally had to first have a good talk with this young master. Your Highness, this matter is none of our business. Shouldn't we? Before Han Yunchi could finish speaking, Long Fei Yi coldly declared, We're definitely going to interfere. Guards, what are you waiting for? Mu Chaoran waved his hand in a particularly arrogant manner. Who would have thought that Mu Ling-er would actually raise her head and cut her neck with the dagger, leaving a bloody mark? All of the guards stopped in their tracks. Han Yunchi was shocked. Stupid girl, Mu Chaoran is stupid, but you're even stupider than him. You're a pig. Without Mu Ling-er, the Mu family could have faked Mu Ling-er's medicine to create a genius. If Mu Yingdong hadn't been imprisoned by Mu Ling-er, he would have definitely made the first young master into the second genius of the Mu family. If Mu Ling-er died, Mu Chaoran would suffer the greatest loss. How could Mu Chaoran think so deeply? Ever since he was young, he'd wanted nothing more than for Mu Ling-er to die. As long as she was dead, there would be no one to compete with him for the position of house head. As long as she was dead, he would be able to unscrupulously search through her belongings and find the 38 medicinal notes. What are you all standing there for? Don't you want to mingle in the Mu family anymore? He roared. The guards listened to Mu Linger in the end. Even if the tip of the dagger had already pierced into her flesh and could take her life at any time, they still went forward to capture her. Mu Linger suddenly smiled. Her smile was filled with despair. She really wanted to die. Returning to the Mu family was a fate worse than death for her. As for Chi Brother, when she woke up at the inn and found out that Chi Brother had poisoned her to get rid of her, she suddenly realized how much Chi Brother disliked her. Up until now, there were only two things in her life. One was to create medicine for the Mu family, and the other was goo. Now there was nothing left for her. The guards were already in front of her. She could either stab her with the dagger or be captured by them. Mu Linger closed her eyes. Just as she was about to vent her anger, a clang was suddenly heard and the dagger fell to the ground. Who's there? Mu Chaoran was the first to react. Two quick-witted guards wanted to seize the chance to capture Mu Linger, but they suddenly collapsed to the ground with bloody wounds on their necks. Now all of the guards were afraid and backed away. Mu Chaoran was the most frightened of them all. He hid behind the guards and shouted, "You dare to provoke my Medicine City's Mu family? Do you want to die? Who's there? Come out." Long Fei Yi slowly landed with Han Yunqi in his arms. Mu Chaoran didn't recognize the Long Fei Yi, but felt that Han Yunqi's face was very familiar. "Han Yunqi," Mu Linger exclaimed. Why did she run into this woman again? Why did she run into her when she was at her most wretched? Mu Chaoran finally realized why he felt so familiar. This was the woman the Duke of Qin had once put a bounty on all of Cloud Realm continent, Qin Wangfei. So the man holding her waist so domineeringly was Duke of Qin, Mu Chaoran muttered. Mu Chaoran had spent the past few months searching for Mu Linger, so he had no idea that Zhang Sun Zilin had already surrendered to the Duke of Qin's estate. Although he feared Long Fei Yi in his heart, he still acted like the eldest young master of the Mu clan and said, "Your Highness Duke of Qin, these are my Mu clan's internal affairs. I ask that you make things easy for us." Mu Chaoran was polite enough, but Long Fei Yi wasn't the least bit courteous. He gave Mu Chaoran a cold look without replying. Feeling awkward, Mu Chaoran hardened his tone. Someone come and take ninth young miss back." Although the Duke of Qin wasn't someone to be trifled with, neither was the head of Medicine City's Mu clan. He'd heard of how Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi had teamed up with Gu Qisha to open Pill Fiend Pharmacy. No matter what those two did, anyone who had anything to do with Pill Fiend Pharmacy was an enemy of Medical City and Medicine City. Based on this alone, Mu Chaoran felt that he had no reason to be afraid of them. Before the guards could move, Han Yunqi had already stepped in front of Mu Linger to block their path. She crossed her arms over her chest and smiled at Mu Chaoran, her smile completely harmless. Mu Linger lowered her head and remained silent. Seeing this, Mu Chaoran sneered. "Esteemed Wangfei? It seems that esteemed Wangfei is determined to meddle in my Mu clan's internal affairs?" Han Yunqi smiled and nodded. Mu Chaoran didn't hold back and pointed at Han Yunqi. "Very good. You'd better not regret this." Then he turned to leave. He might be stupid, but he wasn't stupid enough to try and fight the Duke of Qin with just a few people. He'd only taken 2 steps when he unwillingly turned back. Making an enemy of Medicine City is the same as making an enemy of Medical City. There won't be a good ending. Han Yunqi had a very good temper. She smiled and waved goodbye. Mu Chaoran was infuriated to death. "Crazy woman," he spat. Just as he was about to turn around, a sharp wind blade suddenly scraped past his neck. "It hurts." He touched his hand and found it covered in blood. When he focused, he saw a blood-stained leaf on the ground in front of him. He was scared out of his wits and turned to Long Fei Yi, only to see Long Fei Yi playing with a few leaves in his hand. He then looked at Han Yunqi and saw that she was still smiling and waving at him. Mu Chaoran felt a chill run down his spine. He had a very bad premonition. "Go on. Why aren't you leaving?" Han Yunqi finally spoke in a very friendly tone. What do you want? This young master is the eldest young master of the Mu clan. If you dare do anything to me, Medicine City won't let you off." Mu Chaoran warned. Mu Linger, your brother is leaving. Aren't you going to send him off? Han Yunqi asked. Mu Linger finally raised her head and looked at Han Yunqi straight back. She didn't know what possessed her, but she felt a sense of security. She didn't feel like she was alone anymore. She walked out with her chin held high. Of course I have to send him off properly. Mu Linger, you dare. Mu Chaoran roared. See if I dare or not. Mu Linger sneered and walked step by step towards Mu Chaoran. Mu Chaoran turned to run, but Long Fei Yi immediately presented him with a leaf. He abruptly stopped, but Mu Linger kicked him from behind, just like how he'd kicked the guard. Go on, didn't you want to leave? Guards! Guards! No matter how Mu Chaoran shouted, it was all in vain. Who didn't fear the Duke of Qin's leaf? Mu Linger crouched down and asked seriously, You're not leaving? I'm your brother. Mu Chaoran emphasized. I have plenty of brothers. You're not the only one. Mu Linger smiled coldly. What are you thinking? Mu Chaoran was scared. Mu Linger smiled as innocently as Han Yunqi, but she suddenly threw a punch at Mu Chaoran's face. This old lady has wanted to do you for a long time. Mu Linger, you, Mu Chaoran couldn't speak because Mu Linger used both her hands, punching left and right to vent her anger. In the end, Mu Chaoran was knocked unconscious. Long Fei Yi raised his eyebrows, but Han Yunqi was stunned. She didn't expect this girl's fists to be so hard. She asked suspiciously, Hey, doesn't your hand hurt? Mu Linger stood up, not caring about the blood on her fist. She said coldly, Han Yunqi, I didn't ask you to save me. I don't care what your motive is. You want my life and nothing else. Han Yunqi probably liked Mu Linger's stubbornness. Although it was all because of a motive, it was indeed a motive. She took a step forward and whispered in Mu Linger's ear. She didn't know what she said, but Mu Linger's cold and arrogant expression instantly softened. Really? She asked seriously. If I lie to you, I'll die a horrible death. However, you better pretend that you don't know anything. Han Yunqi whispered. Chapter 507. What did Han Yunqi tell Mu Linger? Heaven and earth didn't know. Only the two of them knew. In any case, Mu Linger's entire being lit up. Han Yunqi. I believe you. Han Yunqi's focus was clearly on the latter part of her sentence. She repeated herself. It's best if you pretend you don't know anything. Mu Linger was in a good mood as she broke into a wicked grin. What do I know? I don't know a thing. Han Yunqi discovered that this girl still looked better when she smiled. She handed her a bottle of medicine. Hurry and treat that neck wound. Be careful, you won't be able to get married if it leaves a scar. Mu Linger glanced at the bottle with disdain. No need, I have plenty of medicine. She was about to leave when she scooted closer to Han Yunqi's ear and murmured, Han Yunqi, does our agreement from last time still count? A few months ago, Han Yunqi had wanted her to challenge His Excellency Pill Fiend at Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Because of the coup in Tianning's capital, Pill Fiend Pharmacy hadn't opened for business yet. Because she'd escaped the Mu clan's pursuit, the matter had been delayed. A crafty gleam flashed past Han Yunqi's eyes. She knew that she could basically lure this girl to Pill Fiend Pharmacy now. She'd admit that she was crafty. Of course, Pill Fiend Pharmacy is right next door. It'll open in half a month. After that, you're welcome to come anytime, Han Yunqi smiled. Just you wait. Mu Linger coolly tossed out these two words before leaving. As for Mu Chaoran, she'd already told Chi Brother to let him off the hook last time at the Mu clan's medicinal grounds. This time, he could go and die. With Mu Linger gone and Mu Chaoran unconscious, the Mu clan guards exchanged glances, unsure of what to do. Han Yunqi didn't speak, but simply smiled at them. When they saw Qin Wangfei's harmless smile, the guards were so scared that they scrambled away. How could they dare to save Mu Chaoran? The only thing they can do is to quickly report to the Mu family head. She meddled in other people's business and picked up the eldest young master of the Mu family. Han Yunqi thought, good intentions are rewarded. She turned to look at Long Fei Yi. Your Highness, carry him away. At this moment, Long Fei Yi felt like he had become a bodyguard who was at the beck and call of this woman. Of course, the ones who carried Mu Chaoran away were the shadow guards. Long Fei Yi was so obsessed with cleanliness. In this lifetime, he would probably only carry Han Yunxi. Mu Chaoran was left in Pill Fiend Pharmacy for a day and a night. He hadn't even woken up when Mu Ingdong's handwritten letter arrived via Eagle. The tone of the letter was quite rude, stating that the black market business was one thing and the Mu family's business was another. He questioned why Long Fei Yi had meddled in the Mu clan's business for no reason and accused Long Fei Yi of bullying the weak. He strongly requested that Long Fei Yi immediately release Mu Chaoran. Otherwise, the Mu clan and Medicine City would accompany him to the end. Han Yunxi read the letter a total of 3 times before seriously asking Long Fei Yi, "Your Highness, aren't we going too far? Aren't you here to save someone?" Long Fei Yi retorted. Han Yunxi nodded seriously. Thus, Long Fei Yi personally wrote a letter to Mu Ingdong via Eagle. When Mu Ingdong received the letter, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Long Fei Ye's reply was as follows. He said that Mu Ling-er had been forced to commit suicide. Fortunately, Qin Wangfei had saved her, so the Mu clan owed Qin Wangfei a life. As for Mu Chaoran, he had been beaten unconscious by his own sister and abandoned by his guards. Qin Wangfei couldn't bear to see him like this and could only rescue him back to Pill Fiend Pharmacy to take care of him. Thus, the Mu clan owed Qin Wangfei a life. That's a total of 2 lives, so please keep them in mind. Mu Ingdong was currently on his way to South Ning Prefecture. Regarding Mu Chaoran's collusion with Zhang Sunzilan to sell rare herbs at a high price in the black market, Mu Ingdong didn't plan to appear personally. He only planned to be the military advisor behind the scenes and let Mu Chaoran talk to Han Yunxi himself. After all, he had to leave himself a way out. If the negotiations failed, he could still punish Mu Chaoran as the Mu clan's patriarch and give the world an explanation. At the very least, he could restore the Mu clan's reputation to a certain extent. But now, before he even arrived, Mu Chaoran had fallen into Han Yunxi's hands. What was there to talk about? Mu Ingdong thought about it for a long time before finally placing all the blame on Mu Ling-er. If it wasn't for this pampered girl, things wouldn't have gotten to this point. Pill Fiend Pharmacy had already been completed, so Han Yunxi was extremely busy. What was she busy with? Of course, she was tidying up the herbs. She originally wanted to decorate Pill Fiend Pharmacy, but after taking a stroll around, she found that there was no need for that at all. Everyone said that simple decorations were fine, but Pill Fiend Pharmacy's decorations were definitely done with great care and effort. Aside from the herbs, any other decorations were superfluous. The storehouse design, on the other hand, was a combination of her original blueprints and many additional details. Could be said to be perfect. This was Long Fei Ye's style. He always gave the best. Han Yunxi was so busy that she didn't have time to pay attention to Mu Chaoran. She originally planned to have a good chat with him after he woke up. But who would have thought that Mu Chaoran would sleep for another day and night? No matter how hard that little girl Mu Ling-er's fists were, how could she really beat a grown man until he was crippled? How strange. Under Long Fei Ye's accompaniment, Han Yunxi arrived at the guest room that had taken in Mu Chaoran. She saw the bruised and swollen Mu Chaoran lying on the bed without any signs of waking up. Su Donglin, who was in charge of guarding the room, asked in a low voice, "Esteemed Wangfei, did you hurt your head?" Han Yunxi deliberately walked closer and stared at his face. She shouted, "Bring a basin of ice water." Mu Chaoran didn't react at all. It didn't seem like he was faking it. Su Donglin was just about to leave when Long Fei Yi said, "Hot water. The hottest." His voice wasn't loud, but it shocked Mu Chaoran so much that his eyes widened in fright. "You're awake." Han Yunxi smiled happily. Mu Chaoran was about to cry. He had woken up a long time ago. He knew that he was being held captive, so he pretended to be asleep. He hoped that his father would quickly send someone over. But even after pretending for so long, his father still hadn't sent anyone. What should he do? Only the heavens knew why these 2 great Buddhas were holding him captive. "Are you hungry?" Han Yunxi asked kindly. How could he not be hungry? Mu Chaoran was so hungry that he almost fainted. But Han Yunqi's smile was his nightmare. Esteemed Wang Fei, we can discuss everything. I'm begging you, let's not fight. Su Donglin, bring him some porridge. Only when he's full will he have the strength to talk. After being hungry for so long, eating porridge that was easy to digest wouldn't hurt his stomach. Han Yunqi was still very kind. She and Long Fei Yi sat down at a nearby tea table and waited. Mu Chaoran felt as if he had been granted amnesty. His heart that was hanging in the air finally calmed down. As long as they didn't fight, everything could be discussed. He peacefully ate the porridge. Han Yunqi thought that Mu Chaoran would wolf down the porridge, but who knew that this fellow would be able to chew slowly after being hungry for 2 days and 2 nights. Su Donglin handed him a second bowl, but he actually refused. He even asked, "Give me another bowl in 2 hours." Han Yunqi felt admiration. This fellow really cherished his life. All right, they could talk now. How many types of low-grade, high-quality herbs does your Mu family have? Han Yunqi went straight to the point. Mu Chaoran was very surprised. Esteemed Wang Fei, why? We're just casually chatting, Han Yunqi said with a smile as she played with a leaf in her hand. Seeing this, Mu Chaoran's curiosity disappeared and he quickly replied, "There are the most low-grade, high-quality herbs. There are around 270 types of high-quality herbs in the main category. There are at least 5 or 6 types of high-quality herbs in each main category." As soon as his voice fell, a leaf flew over and brushed past Mu Chaoran's hand, leaving behind a shallow bloodstain. Mu Chaoran was frightened and quickly changed his words. The Mu family has a total of 300 types of low-grade, high-quality herbs. 30 of them are unique to the Mu family, and the Xie and Wang families can't grow them. If we subdivide these 30 types, there are 10 types of high-quality herbs in each category. Ever since he wanted to buy low-grade, high-quality herbs, Long Fei Yi had asked Elder Wang about it. Although Elder Wang didn't know how many the Mu family had, he still knew that the Mu family had quite a few unique herbs. Mu Chaoran wanted to lie, but he was simply asking for trouble. Han Yunqi acted as if nothing had happened. She smiled and asked, "What's the price?" When she said this, Mu Chaoran was pleasantly surprised. Esteemed Wang Fei needs it. As soon as this one returns to the Mu family, I'll immediately send over a large batch. I guarantee esteemed Wang Fei will be satisfied. Mu Chaoran's pig brain couldn't even get in touch with Pill Fiend Pharmacy. But it wasn't his fault. Pill Fiend Pharmacy walked the high-end route of Medicine Ghost Valley. Why would it want low-quality herbs? How could I ask for them for free? Just give me a cheaper price. How about this? List out the prices for each type of herb. If there's a need, this Wang Fei will send someone to buy them, Han Yunqi said politely. Thus, Mu Chaoran thought himself clever. Tianning's in chaos, he thought, so there's bound to be chaos soon. When that happens, there'll be a lot of casualties. Medicinal ingredients will be in short supply. Han Yunqi and Long Fei Yi must be planning to stock up on medicinal ingredients. Although it was a bit expensive to use high-quality herbs, they could still afford to use low-quality ones. He assumed that Han Yunqi had seized the opportunity to detain him so she could haggle over the price. Just like that, Mu Chaoran listed an extremely low price that was close to the cost of production. There was no profit at all. Han Yunqi glanced at the price and was very satisfied. Seeing that Han Yunqi was satisfied, Mu Chaoran felt reassured. As long as she could let him go, he didn't mind making less money or even losing money. Esteemed Wang Fei, if there's nothing else, then this one will take his leave? Mu Chaoran said timidly. The sooner this one returns to the Mu clan, the better to personally prepare the goods for esteemed Wang Fei. We'll be working together for a long time, so there's no rush. In any case, your father should be here in a couple of days. You can go back with him then, Han Yunqi said with a smile. Mu Chaoran was stunned. For a moment, he didn't understand what Han Yunqi meant. There was too much information in those words. What long-term cooperation? His father was coming in person. 2 days later, Mu Ingdong didn't show up. Instead, it was the Wang clan's second master Wang Zhongyang, the Xie clan's eldest young master Xie Hongming, and the Mu clan's shopkeeper Zhou who showed up. The Wang and Xie clans were all involved in the black market's drug trade. while shopkeeper Zhou was only a servant. His Highness Duke of Qin and esteemed Wang Fei kept the Wang and Xie clans people and allowed shopkeeper Zhou to return. His Highness Duke of Qin was very angry. Either the person involved or the clan head comes. What does a trifling shopkeeper want to talk to this prince about? Esteemed Wang Fei was very understanding. Eldest young Master Mu is already at Pill Fiend Pharmacy, so there's no need for the Mu clan to send anyone. Mu Yingdong, who was hiding in the inn, was caught between a rock and a hard place. He had no choice but to personally show up and become the only clan head of Medicine City's 3 clans to show up. He was so depressed that he almost died. Now that the 3 clans had all arrived, how would this deal be discussed? How would the clueless Mu Chaoran react when he saw his father? Chapter 508. Behind Pill Fiend Pharmacy's enormous store was a garden, and behind it was a luxurious reception hall. Second Master Wang Zhongyang and eldest young Master Xie Hongming didn't know about Mu Chaoran's affairs, so they weren't surprised to see him sitting there. Mu Chaoran, on the other hand, was stunned. Why were these 2 here? His Highness Duke of Qin and Qin Wangfei had only told him that his father was coming to drink tea, but nothing else. Of course he knew that his father wasn't just here to make tea, and that Qin Wangfei wasn't just asking for the price of ingredients. But what did this have to do with the Wang and Xie clans? Could it be that Qin Wangfei was going to shop around? The Duke of Qin's estate was rich and overbearing, so why was she so unhappy about doing business? Was she planning to stock up on a lot of ingredients? That was Mu Chaoran's analysis. Therefore, he decided to remain silent once again, thinking that he was clever. After all, he'd quoted the lowest price. The Xie and Wang clans couldn't possibly go lower than him, unless they wanted to make a loss. High-quality ingredients had high requirements for soil and care. The Mu clan had plenty of fertile fields and skilled labor, so their costs were naturally lower than the Wang and Xie clans. Therefore, the Mu family had the upper hand in terms of price and quality of medicinal herbs. Mu Chaoran didn't know about Mute Granny, much less that his father had been cheated out of a treasure by Qin Wangfei in order to save Mu Ling. He thought himself clever. If he could close this deal, he'd forget all the unpleasantness from before and form a personal friendship with the Duke of Qin. Tianning was divided into 3 parts. Although the Duke of Qin hadn't declared himself emperor, he was still the hegemon of the south-central regions. Forming a friendship with him would at least give him a way out. The 2 men from the Wang and Xie clans bowed and took their seats, but His Highness Duke of Qin and Qin Wangfei didn't say anything. Firstly, there was a difference in status. Secondly, the 2 of them didn't dare to speak up. Instead, they sent inquisitive looks towards Mu Chaoran. But after much thought, Mu Chaoran pretended not to see them and calmly drank his tea. After a period of silence, it was Wang Zhongyang who spoke up. Your Highness Duke of Qin, they haven't all arrived yet? The Mu clan head hasn't arrived yet, Long Fei Yi replied. These words sent waves through the Wang and Xie clans. How could this be? Mu Yingdong actually came in person? They were here to settle the ugly business of the black market's medicinal herbs in private. Qin Wangfei could only buy and sell the low-end premium herbs she wanted privately. One had to know that Pill Fiend Pharmacy was under Gu Qisha's name. If they were to publicly supply medicinal ingredients, Medical City would definitely object. It was not appropriate for the patriarch to appear in such matters. Firstly, if this matter were to be exposed one day, the clan head would have no way out. Secondly, if the other party raised a high request, the clan head would have no way to refuse. Things were a little complicated. Wang and Xie looked at Mu Chaoran and saw that he was very relaxed. Thus, they decided not to say anything more. Therefore, when Mu Yingdong came over, everyone present was very silent. Mu Yingdong sat down beside Mu Chaoran and glared at him fiercely. Mu Chaoran thought it was about Mu Ling and let him stare. Mu Yingdong glanced at Wang and Xie and said, "What are you talking about? Looks like old man is late." Since the Mu clan head came personally, how could we talk without waiting for you? Han Yunshi smiled. Hearing this, Mu Yingdong understood what was going on. He stood up and raised his teacup. Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wang Fei, I've heard that you two worked tirelessly to reform Guqi Sha and sell medicine to save people. This one admires you endlessly. Although Guqi Sha refused to sell his medicine in the past and watched people die without saving them, this one feels gratified that he's turned over a new leaf and walked the right path. Today, I've personally come to deliver a medicine command token to show my support. So speaking, Mu Yingdong took out a wooden command token that emanated the fragrance of medicinal herbs. Of course, Han Yunxi would accept it. Even if Mu Yingdong didn't give it to them, they'd ask for it in today's negotiations. That was because a medicine command token was equivalent to a permit to do business. In Cloud Realm Continent, all legitimate pharmacies had to have such a thing or else they wouldn't be recognized by the medical community. Otherwise, no one would openly sell medicine to you, much less let their patients fill prescriptions. The command tokens were in the hands of Medicine City, so all three families had the right to issue them. Han Yunxi accepted the token with a clear conscience, but Mu Chaoran was stunned. Father didn't need to spend so much money just to get on good terms with the Duke of Qin, right? He'd even publicly recognized Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Although he made it sound so dignified, it'd be hard to explain to Medical City later. As for the Wang and Xie Wangs, they remained silent. Mu Yingdong was a wily old fox, so he didn't mention a word about the black market. Instead, he gave Pill Fiend Pharmacy such a huge benefit as soon as he arrived. Qin Wangfei probably knew what was going on and wouldn't make things too difficult for them. After Han Yunxi accepted the command token, Mu Yingdong added, Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wangfei, since my Mu clan has issued the command token, we'll do our best to assist Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Of course, we'll also strictly monitor its sales. I hope the two of you can understand. Han Yunxi couldn't help but admire him for his bureaucratic words. If Mu Yingdong had asked for Zhang Sunzilan's records as soon as he arrived, that would have been too low class. Mu Yingdong wasn't here to settle things privately. He was here to publicly support Pill Fiend Pharmacy. It was fine as long as everyone was well aware of those scandals. Putting on an official front and not leaving any evidence to be used against each other was also quite good. As a result, Han Yunxi followed Mu Yingdong's lead and said, with Mu clan head's words, this Wangfei can rest assured. Pill Fiend Pharmacy is quite interested in low-end quality medicinal ingredients. Is Mu clan head willing to cooperate? Of course. Mu Yingdong was very straightforward. At this time, the Wang and Xie Wangs hurriedly spoke up. Esteemed Wangfei, the Wang family is also willing to cooperate. Esteemed Wangfei, the Xie family is willing to supply Pill Fiend Pharmacy. This one has full authority over the price. Since Mu Yingdong had issued the command token, the Wang and Xie clans didn't need to bear the pressure of Medical City. They naturally had to publicly curry favor with Pill Fiend Pharmacy and were eager to express their stance. Mu Chaoran hadn't said anything until now. When he heard the word price, he only smiled coldly. How many low-end quality medicinal ingredients does Pill Fiend Pharmacy intend to buy? Mu Yingdong was very straightforward. He had suffered from insomnia for an entire night before coming up with this method to deal with this negotiation. Right now, he just wanted to quickly conclude this matter and go back to teach Mu Chaoran a lesson. Then, he would increase the search for that damned girl Mu Ling and bring her back. Of course, he was also worried about Mute Granny. However, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi hadn't made any moves on this matter, so he couldn't make a decision for the time being. How much? That's hard to say, Han Yunxi said seriously. Why is it hard to say? Esteemed Wangfei, we're all straightforward people. Just name a quantity and old man will name a price, Mu Yingdong said. What? Will there be a discount if the quantity is higher? Han Yunxi asked curiously. Of course. The higher the quantity, the greater the discount. Mu Yingdong decided to take advantage of Han Yunxi. Even Gu Qisha wouldn't necessarily know the exact price of these ingredients. TSK. It looks like Househead Mu has quite the talent for business. Han Yunxi smiled. It was absolutely ironic that people from Medicine City and Medical City, who helped the dying and healed the wounded, were praised for their talent in business. Mu Yingdong was quite embarrassed. How much does esteemed Wangfei need? Let's take a look at the types and prices first. Han Yunxi became serious. Mu Ingdong took out the list of ingredients. There were 270 types of low-end quality ingredients and their respective prices. Not to mention the 30 types Mu Chaoran had mentioned, the prices were also very unreasonable. This price was 5 times higher than Mu Chaoran's price. Mu Ingdong, why don't you just go rob a bank? Han Yunxi was very direct. House head Mu, I heard young Master Mu say that the Mu family has 30 types of low-end quality ingredients that this Wang Fei is very interested in. Why isn't there anything on the list? Mu Ingdong immediately looked at Mu Chaoran. Mu Chaoran lowered his head, not daring to meet Mu Ingdong's gaze. Pill Fiend Pharmacy was competing with Medicine City for the low-end quality ingredients. If the Mu family were to lose those 30 types of ingredients, they would lose the entire low-end market. If this was any other time, Mu Ingdong would have refused. However, this seemingly ordinary transaction was in the hands of the other 3 families. They had no right to bargain. Mu Ingdong could only agree. We do have some, but they're not on the list. What's the price? Han Yunxi asked again. Mu Ingdong gave a high price, 5 times higher than Mu Chaoran's. Han Yunxi's eyes flashed dangerously for the second time, but she still smiled. What if this Wang Fei wants 50 dan of each type? How much discount can House Head Mu give? 50 dan of each type? That's more than 30 bags per dan. Is this woman crazy? It would be strange if so many ingredients didn't go bad. Moreover, if the ingredients weren't picked, the longer they were planted, the better. Once they were picked, the longer they were stored, the weaker their medicinal effects would become. They would either rot or rot. Everyone present was shocked. Long Fei Yi, who had been watching from the sidelines, also frowned at Han Yunxi. Han Yunxi continued to do as she pleased. House Head Mu, it would be too insincere of you not to give me a big discount for such a large quantity. Mu Ingdong pondered for a moment, then decisively said, since esteemed Wang Fei is so sincere, this old man will give His Highness Duke of Qin some face and give you a 20% discount. 20% discount? That was the equivalent of a 20% discount. A bag of ingredients was 50 taels, so a 20% discount was 40 taels. Mu Chaoran's starting price was only 10 taels. They wouldn't make a loss even if they sold it for 10 taels. Han Yunxi was angry. Your Highness, your face is only worth such a small discount. Let's just not buy it. Long Fei Yi said, then let's see them out. How could the atmosphere change so quickly? Not to mention the Wang and Xia siblings, even Mu Ingdong was frightened. If the deal didn't go well, the scandal would be exposed. Esteemed Wang Fei, then name a price. Mu Ingdong hurriedly said. He thought that no matter how good Han Yunxi was at bargaining, she wouldn't be able to lower the price. But who would have thought that Han Yunxi would very bluntly say, you can keep 20% for yourself. Give me an 80% discount. With an 80% discount, it happened to be Mu Chaoran's starting price. It was also the Mu family's lowest price. Mu Ingdong's cold gaze shot towards Mu Chaoran. He wished he could shoot him to death on the spot. This unfilial son. He actually revealed all of his secrets to others. He even talked so much. It was simply a joke. Chapter 509. Despite his anger, Mu Ingdong couldn't help but acknowledge Han Yunxi's intelligence. That was because this was his bottom line. If the price was lower than this, he wouldn't compromise and would only allow them to expose his ugly deeds. If the price was higher than this, they would be able to make a profit. At the very least, they would be able to find some comfort in this matter. However, they were stuck at this price. It was like a chicken rib that was tasteless to eat, but a pity to throw it away. His old life had almost died from depression. Mu Ingdong thought it over and over again, but he still found some comfort. Han Yunxi wanted such a large amount, so they should clear out the stock. At the very least, they should convert all the stock that was about to go bad into silver. In a sense, they would make a small profit. As a result, Mu Ingdong readily agreed. This old man naturally has to give face to the Duke of Qin. If it's an 80% discount, then so be it. Just treat it as a congratulatory gift for Pill Fiend Pharmacy's grand opening. Who would accept money for a congratulatory gift? Han Yunqi cursed Mu Ingdong for being shameless in her heart. So she did something even more shameless than Mu Ingdong, completely crushing him into despair. She said, 300 types of medicinal ingredients, 50 dan of each. I'll buy them in batches every month. I'll stock them at the beginning of this month and settle the bill at the beginning of next month. When she said this, Mu Ingdong's face turned black, but she continued with a serious expression. I'll settle the bill as much as I buy. Mu family head can rest assured. This princess consort guarantees in the name of His Highness that I won't go back on my word. Long Fei Yi almost choked on the tea that had just entered his throat. He lightly coughed a few times before calmly saying, approved. Han Yunqi was overjoyed and continued, of course, we'll also have to sign a price guarantee agreement. If the price of medicinal ingredients drops, Mu family head will have to guarantee the price for Pill Fiend Pharmacy and make up for the difference. Mu Ingdong's face didn't just turn black. His vision turned black and he almost fainted. Han Yunqi, why don't you just go rob someone? Mu Ingdong was dumbfounded and didn't say anything for a long time. Mu Charon's head was almost buried in his pants. He knew that he would never be able to turn the situation around. As for the two from the Wang and Xie families, they didn't dare to make a sound. They only hoped that the princess consort would take less of their family's goods after eating so much of the Mu family's goods. Not to mention the fact that they were going to lose money at this price. Just the insurance agreement alone was going to make them lose a lot of money. Qin Wangfei had ordered such a large batch at the current price, so it would definitely take 1 or 2 years to get all the goods. For the past 2 years, the price of medicinal herbs had been rising and there was no sign of it falling. She made it sound nice that it was a price guarantee. Because of time, the essence was that if the price went up, it wouldn't go up, and if the price went down, it would have to be covered. For example, if the price of medicinal ingredients increased a year later, the Mu family would only be able to sell to Pill Fiend Pharmacy at the current price. Moreover, if the price dropped, the Mu family would have to follow suit. The phrase sure win, no loss was simply created for Han Yunqi. Mu family head, if you think there's no problem, let's make it clear in black and white. Okay? Han Yunqi said, then added, once you've made it clear, I'll be able to place the order. As for the first order, I'll pay as soon as the goods arrive. Send someone to deliver the list you want as well. The list Mu Ingdong wanted was undoubtedly the record of the medicinal ingredients that Zhangsun Zilan had given to Long Fei Yi. Since Mu Ingdong had been forced to come here in person, he didn't mention a single word about the black market. Instead, he found a high-sounding reason to grant Pill Fiend Pharmacy a medicine order and made it sound like a normal business transaction. He was truly worthy of being the head of a family. He was truly amazing. Unfortunately, no matter how amazing he was still under someone else's control in this matter. Han Yunqi had grasped his bottom line and put him between a rock and a hard place. Seeing that Mu Ingdong was showing signs of regret, Long Fei Yi said, Mu family head, what do you think? The weight of His Highness Duke of Qin's words was different from that of Qin Wangfei's. Mu Ingdong raised his head, weighing the cost of going back on his word. Leaving aside the fact that Tianning was divided into 3 parts and what Long Fei Yi would do in the future, there was also the matter of Mute Granny. Heaven knows what Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi were up to, how much they knew, and what plans they had. After some hesitation and deliberation, Mu Ingdong finally compromised. Your Highness Duke of Qin, the old man sold you this face. Let's just leave it at that. Sold him face? Would that count as owing him Mu Ingdong? Long Fei Yi said, Mu family head. There's no need for that. Mu Ingdong was furious in his heart. Long Fei Yi, don't ever ask for Medicine City's help again. Your Highness Duke of Qin really knows how to joke. Mu Ingdong cleverly laid a way out for Han Yunqi. Esteemed Wangfei, let's draw up the agreement. Han Yunqi knew when to stop. Someone come. Bring me brush and ink. Just like that, Han Yunqi used Pill Fiend Pharmacy's name to sign a lengthy agreement with the Mu clan. It guaranteed both the supply and price of their ingredients. Pill Fiend Pharmacy's prices were controlled to a certain level that most people could accept. It was also because of this that Medicine City and other markets had no choice but to lower the prices of similar ingredients. Before the price hike, the Mu clan wasn't losing out either. It was just that everyone was earning less than before. Because of this, Han Yunqi had offended quite a few people, but she didn't mind. She said that medicinal ingredients were like rice. They were needed by the people, so the price had to be reasonable. Before long, Pill Fiend Pharmacy had become the best pharmacy in the city. Of course, this was all for later. After reaching an agreement with the Mu clan, Mu Ingdong angrily left with Mu Chaoran. The Wang and Xie clan elders had made ample preparations, but now they sat there in a daze, unsure of what to do. "Sirs, please have some tea," Han Yunqi said politely. The two elders smiled and picked up their teacups to drink. If this Princess Consort's guess is correct, the Mu clan's medicinal ingredients cost far less than yours. Correct? Han Yunqi's words caused Xie Hongming to hastily reply, "Yes, yes, esteemed Princess Consort is wise." Wang Zhongyang hurriedly chimed in, "Esteemed Wang Fei, the Mu clan has been relying on their influence in the Council of Elders to monopolize the market. Even the best land in Medicine City has been taken by them. They've also used all sorts of methods to blackmail the young pharmacists and have almost monopolized the market. The Mu clan has to bear the responsibility for the high prices of medicinal ingredients." Ayaya, even the Wang and Xie clans of Medicine City were on the same side? Why were they so united against a common enemy? One had to know that the two clans hadn't interacted for at least 50 years. The Wang clan used to be the leader of the medicinal industry, but with the rise of the Mu clan, the Xie clan had long since joined the Mu clan. In the Council of Elders, the Mu and Xie clans had always worked together to bully the Wang clan. Today's scene was truly a rare sight. Who knew what Mu Ingdong would think if he found out? There was no doubt that Han Yunqi had said those words on purpose. Second Master Wang's words are quite pleasant to hear. The Mu clan's influence has grown over the years, but unfortunately, they don't have the style of a great clan. On the other hand, the Wang clan's style remains the same and is worthy of respect. Han Yunqi was praising the Wang clan, not Wang Zhongyang, but Wang Zhongyang took it as a compliment and was extremely proud of himself. "Esteemed Princess Consort, I am indebted to you for thinking so highly of me." Xie Hongming quickly chimed in, "My father often says that Medicine City's strength of character lies in the Wang clan. I agree with esteemed Princess Consort." Unlike Xie Hongming's shallow flattery, Wang Zhongyang was much more cunning and went straight to the point. Just like Mu Ingdong, he didn't mention a single word about the black market. "Esteemed Princess Consort, although the Wang clan's ability is limited and we can't offer as low a price as the Mu clan, we will still do our best to support Pill Fiend Pharmacy. I ask esteemed Princess Consort to make things convenient for us." Wang Zhongyang stood up and respectfully bowed. He didn't know that Elder Wang and His Highness Duke of Qin were old friends. Nor did he know that Elder Wang had already informed His Highness about the black market. No matter the outcome of the negotiations, His Highness Duke of Qin wouldn't make things difficult for the Wang clan. On the contrary, he would be severely punished by Elder Wang as soon as he returned. Xie Hongming was a junior who was basically Wang Zhongyang's follower. When he heard Wang Zhongyang's words, he hurriedly followed suit. "Esteemed Princess Consort, the Xie clan's situation is similar to the Wang clan's. Please show mercy." Han Yunqi pretended to think for a moment before agreeing. "The two of you should go back and discuss it. Give me a price in a month. If this Princess Consort likes it, then this matter will be settled. If not, then we can slowly discuss it." Wang Zhongyang and Xie Hongming were overjoyed. After all, they weren't the patriarchs and didn't have the authority to decide the price. Now that the Mu clan's incident had occurred, it was a good thing for them to go back and discuss it with their patriarchs. "Many thanks to esteemed Princess Consort." The two of them exhaled in relief after giving their thanks. They didn't dare to linger and quickly bid their farewells. Although they were going back on different paths, Han Yunqi's words meant that the Wang and Xie clans had to discuss the price together. In this way, she'd shortened the distance between the Wang and Xie clans. In other words, she'd driven a wedge between the Mu and Xie clans. Once the Wang and Xie clans joined forces, the Mu clan wouldn't be able to act so arrogantly in Medicine City. Compared to cheating Mu Yingdong with the price, Han Yunqi's last move was the most sinister. Of course, Long Fei Yi had taught her this beforehand. Long Fei Yi had informed Elder Wang long ago and told him to actively ally with the Xie clan. Han Yunqi had stirred up Cloud Realm's medicine market with the incident at Pill Fiend Pharmacy, while Long Fei Yi was starting to stir up trouble in Medicine City. Tianning's situation was already in chaos. Would Medicine City be the next to fall into chaos? Very soon, Han Yunqi spread the news that Pill Fiend Pharmacy had received a medicine token from the Mu clan and had signed a business agreement with them. She even publicly advertised for pharmacists. The medical community was in an uproar at the news. How Mu Yingdong would deal with the pressure from Medical City was the Mu clan's problem. In any case, Pill Fiend Pharmacy's reputation soared. The Mu clan sent over the first batch of low-grade ingredients that Han Yunqi had requested. At the same time, Han Yunqi personally made a trip to Medicine Ghost Valley to make an inventory of the ingredients she needed. She brought some back herself and left the majority to her servants. Han Yunqi wasn't planning to settle old scores with the broomcorn millet poison incident. Like before, she hoped that Gu would come to Pill Fiend Pharmacy. After all, half of the business belonged to him. Unfortunately, she didn't see Gu at all in Medicine Ghost Valley. She assumed that he'd show up once Pill Fiend Pharmacy became famous. Unfortunately, it was as if he'd vanished into thin air without a trace. On an auspicious day, the sounds of congratulations and firecrackers mingled together to create a lively atmosphere. Long Fei Yi personally wrote down the 3 words, Pill Fiend Pharmacy, while Han Yunqi hung up the signboard. Finally, Pill Fiend Pharmacy was open for business. Would Gu Qishao show up? Han Yunqi silently waited in anticipation. Gu hadn't shown up yet, but someone else had. Who was he? Chapter 510. There wasn't even a shadow of Gu, but Han Yunqi spotted an old friend in the crowd. He stood in the midst of the crowd and gave her a gentle smile. Sunlight shone on his handsome face, illuminating the entire world. Han Yunqi couldn't help but smile. Tranquil, relaxed, warm, all of the hubbub had nothing to do with him. Suddenly, it had nothing to do with her, either. It was like an April spring breeze caressing her face, or a winter sun caressing her face. Gu Beiyue. Long time no see. After the rebel army captured Tianning's imperial palace, Emperor Tianhui had fled overnight. Han Yunqi assumed that he'd taken Gu Beiyue with him as well, so she never expected to see him here. Gu Beiyue walked out of the crowd until 7th Madame and Bailey Mingxiang noticed him. As for Long Fei Yi, he'd spotted him long ago. It had to be said that Gu Beiyue didn't know how to socialize, but he was very popular with people. Needless to say, the Han clan members, even Bailey Mingxiang and Su Xiaoyu, liked him a lot. Everyone came forward to greet him, but Gu Beiyue bowed towards Han Yunqi at the gates. Esteemed Wang Fei, may I ask if your esteemed pharmacy needs a resident doctor? May this one be so bold as to recommend myself? Everyone's attention focused on him at his words. A resident doctor? Does that mean he's willing to work as a resident doctor at Pill Fiend Pharmacy? The sudden surprise made Han Yunqi very happy and moved. After all, a divine doctor like Gu Beiyue didn't need to stay at a pharmacy. Once he left the Imperial Physician Courtyard, he could open his own clinic or return to the medical academy with a bright future ahead of him. The most he could do was to check the prescriptions of the people who came to get the medicine and provide some suggestions. It was really a waste of talent. It wasn't just Han Yunqi. Everyone behind her was overjoyed as well. But soon enough, the crowd began to hiss. Haha, he's overestimating himself. He looks like a sickly invalid. What part of him looks like a doctor? Pill Fiend Pharmacy isn't some random place. Young man, you don't know the difference between heaven and earth. Most of the doctors stationed in medicine halls weren't anything special, but Pill Fiend Pharmacy wasn't an ordinary medicine hall. The doctor stationed here couldn't be careless. How could Gu Beiyue be a casual person? He was calm and collected, but Han Yunqi was anxious. Just as she was about to explain, an immortal-looking old man walked out of the crowd. He gently squeezed Gu Beiyue's right shoulder, and Gu Beiyue's shoulder seemed to have suffered a great blow. It suddenly collapsed, and his whole body squatted down. It was just a light pinch. No matter how weak his body was, it shouldn't be so weak. What's going on? Everyone was shocked. Han Yunqi was about to rush over, but Long Fei Yi pulled her from behind. He said, "What's the rush?" Gu Beiyue squatted on the ground with a pained expression on his face. It was unknown if he was deliberately keeping quiet or if he was in too much pain to speak. "Young man, it hurts a lot, doesn't it?" the old man asked indifferently. Gu Beiyue nodded. The old man gently squeezed Gu Beiyue's left shoulder again. This time, Gu Beiyue's left shoulder also collapsed. His shoulders drooped, making him look especially weak. The old man circled to Gu Beiyue's back and gently pushed Gu Beiyue's palm, as if he was doing Tai Chi. Gu Beiyue huffed and let out a long sigh. "Do you feel better?" the old man asked again. Gu Beiyue nodded again. The old man stroked his beard seriously and muttered to himself, "Dampness is the most evil of all. It harms the young, and those who harm the young will become weak, sick, and die." As he spoke, he circled to Gu Beiyue's back and took out a golden needle. After performing a few strange movements, he pierced it into Gu Beiyue's neck. A needle was usually inserted in a spiral and wouldn't go too deep. But the old man's needle pierced in, and it was especially deep. Everyone watched with trepidation, but Gu Beiyue didn't seem to have any abnormalities. Han Yunqi was the most attentive of them all. Although she wasn't reassured, Gu Beiyue's medical skills were so exceptional that he wouldn't stay silent if he was hurt. Thus, she decided to keep quiet for now. After a while, the old man started to massage Gu Beiyue's left and right shoulders again. Everyone stared fixedly, but Gu Beiyue didn't have much reaction. However, when the old man pulled out the golden needle, they saw that the golden needle had turned completely black. It was so black that it was shining. This wasn't the most amazing thing. The most amazing thing was that this golden needle was actually wet. This time, everyone was shocked. What was going on? They saw Gu Beiyue slowly stand up and shrugged his shoulders. Not only was he fine, he looked much more energetic than before. He looked radiant. Was the dampness removed? Was it cured? Dampness was accumulated over the years, and it was very troublesome to treat. It had to be treated from all aspects. Without 2 or 3 years of good rest, there wouldn't be any effect at all. This sickly person was so energetic. Could it be that 2 or 3 needles could remove the dampness? Someone in the crowd immediately asked, "Old man, does this count as removing the dampness?" The old man's face was unfathomable, and he didn't answer. He sized up Gu Beiyue and said lightly, "half a gram each of foam, qinggan, wei lingxian and sangji. Decoct them every day and drink them as tea." After he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeves and calmly walked out of the crowd. Everyone unconsciously opened up a path, thinking that this person must be a hidden expert. Gu Beiyue didn't thank him, nor did he show much concern. He touched his neck with a gentle expression. The old man walked slowly step by step, looking like an immortal and calm, but his heart was filled with anxiety. Step by step, he walked slower and slower. Qin Wangfei had long posted a notice to recruit talented people. He'd shown such a godly skill at Pill Fiend Pharmacy's gates, so why hadn't Qin Wangfei asked him to stay? Shouldn't she be courteous to him and invite him to stay as a resident doctor at Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Finally, the old man stopped. If he kept walking, he'd really be too far away. After some thought, he turned to Gu Beiyue and said, "Young man, the old man has only accepted one disciple in his life. He's the head imperial physician of Tianning, Gu Beiyue. Although there's a difference between the two of you, you've met the old man by fate today. Come, follow the old man to learn acupuncture." His words sent the crowd into an uproar. No one expected this old man to be Gu Beiyue's master. Gu Beiyue might only be a 5th-rank divine doctor, but his medical skills had long surpassed that. Moreover, his reputation in Tianning was even greater than that of the medical academy's doctors. Could it be that he'd followed this expert after his grandfather passed away? If that's the case, then this expert's medical skills must be incredible. The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone was astonished, but Han Yunqi and the others were the most surprised. How could there be such a blind person in the world? There's really no saving him if he can trick people to this extent. Han Yunqi and the others were all silent. Long Fei Ye's lips were twitching. He'd long seen through this old man's lies, but he never expected this kind of ending. Unexpectedly, Gu Beiwei wasn't angry at all. Instead, he smiled modestly and said, "This one is untalented, so I won't seek connections with you. Are you an idiot? Young man, have you lost your mind as well? Don't you want such a good opportunity? Young man, do you know who Gu Beiwei is? It's your good fortune to be able to become fellow disciples of the same sect as Imperial Physician Gu." All sorts of voices came from all directions, but Gu Beiwei was truly good-natured. He sighed softly and didn't try to explain himself. He only bowed to Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi before preparing to leave. Han Yunqi had planned to expose that old swindler and humiliate him, but all her anger vanished when she saw Gu Beiwei's carefree demeanor. He wasn't afraid of trouble, but simply kind and compassionate. He always turned big problems into small ones, kept a low profile, and didn't care about honor or disgrace. He was the most cultured doctor she'd ever met. Seeing this, the old uncle was dumbfounded. He only knew a few unorthodox medical skills. A few days ago, he'd accepted a sum of money and agreed to infiltrate Pill Fiend Pharmacy as an informant. Today, Pill Fiend Pharmacy had opened, so he'd only come to check out its depths. He'd wanted to seize the opportunity to show off his skills when he saw this sickly invalid. Who knew that he'd run into such a weirdo? Although it was a bit awkward, the old uncle still pretended to be calm. He smiled magnanimously and turned to leave. He thought that even though he hadn't succeeded this time, he'd at least attracted Qin Wangfei's attention. Next time, he'd find a chance to meet her by chance and enter Pill Fiend Pharmacy. With that in mind, the old uncle was about to leave with peace of mind. But at that moment, a surprised voice called out from outside the crowd, "Imperial Physician Gu! Imperial Physician Gu! You're here too! Imperial Physician Gu?" In a flash, all the onlookers turned to see a spirited girl walking towards Gu Beiwei. "Imperial Physician Gu, why are you leaving after arriving at Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Does His Highness Duke of Qin and esteemed Wangfei not welcome you?" the young lady asked jokingly. Before Gu Beiwei could reply, Han Yunqi laughed and said, "How could they not welcome you? Imperial Physician Gu, you just said that you'd be a resident physician at Pill Fiend Pharmacy. You have to keep your word." This time, the crowd exploded. This sickly invalid was actually Gu Beiwei? So that old man was a big liar. Gu Beiwei smiled helplessly. When he turned around, he saw that the group of people behind him were all dumbfounded, especially that immortal old man. The old man wanted to take the opportunity to slip away, but he was immediately grabbed by the crowd and beaten to a pulp. Han Yunqi couldn't be bothered to bicker with a clown like him. When she saw Gu Beiwei walk over, she was happy. When she saw the young lady who came with Gu Beiwei, she was even happier. This was because this person was none other than Mu Ling, the person she'd been waiting for. As expected, she'd come on the opening day. "Esteemed Wangfei, if you don't mind, Gu Beiwei is willing to serve Pill Fiend Pharmacy for the rest of his life," Gu Beiwei said seriously. His voice wasn't loud or domineering, but it shook everyone's hearts. How could the words, "for the rest of his life," be said so casually? After all, saying "for the rest of his life" was a promise. These words were a bit ambiguous, but before anyone could think too much about it, Gu Beiwei added, "I hope that this one will have the good fortune to help the people with your highness and esteemed Wangfei." A complicated look flitted through Long Fei Ye's eyes, but he didn't say anything. Han Yunqi immediately agreed. Pill Fiend Pharmacy's good fortune. At this time, Gu was watching this scene from a nearby rooftop. His eyes narrowed into slits. He wanted nothing more than to go down there and give that old man a few slaps. That's right, he was the one who'd hired that old man. Who knew that he'd be such a scum? While Gu was fuming, he heard Mu Ling shout, "Qin Wangfei, I've come to challenge His Excellency Pill Fiend. Please tell His Excellency Pill Fiend that Medicine City's Mu Ling Is here to fight. Chapter 511. Before the matter with Gu Beiwei had settled, Mu Ling, sudden words stunned everyone present. Ever since Gu Qisha had turned over a new leaf and joined forces with Qin Wangfei to open Pill Fiend Pharmacy, Medicine City's Mu clan had granted it a medicine token, and Pill Fiend Pharmacy's recruitment of pharmacists in South Ning, Cloud Realm Continent's medical community, and even Cloud Realm Continent's interest in Pill Fiend Pharmacy was on the rise. Today's grand opening wasn't limited to the citizens of South Ning Prefecture. Not to mention how many people from Medicine City and Medical City were mingling in the 3 circles around the entrance. Even the private rooms in the surrounding tea houses and restaurants had long been fully booked. There were plenty of people present, but none of them were simple. Still, they were all frightened by Mu Ling-er's words. That damned girl wants to challenge Gu Qisha? This was truly unprecedented and would never be replicated in the future. Although she was the most talented pharmacist in the history of Medicine City, she still couldn't compare to Gu Qisha. His nickname of Pill Fiend wasn't for nothing. Of course, if it was an ordinary person who issued a challenge, everyone would just treat it as a joke and laugh it off. But Mu Ling-er was in an awkward position. The Mu clan had already granted Pill Fiend Pharmacy a medicine token and signed a business agreement. But now Mu Ling-er was here to stir up trouble. What was going on? Everyone was shocked, but they also began to gossip and ponder the mystery behind the situation. In any case, things had gotten out of hand. Challenge Pill Fiend? Mu Ling-er, you're not joking, are you? Han Yunqi couldn't believe it. Although she'd only told Mu Ling-er a secret and didn't get in touch with Mu Ling-er cooperated with her tacitly. Does Qin Wangfei think this girl is joking? She retorted coldly. Hee, since you're serious, then I'll definitely tell Pill Fiend Princess about it. Then this Wangfei will definitely tell Your Excellency Pill Fiend. But Han Yunqi hesitated. Just what? Mu Ling-er asked. It's just that His Excellency Pill Fiend has been very busy recently and isn't in Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Before Han Yunqi could finish, Mu Ling-er interrupted. I can wait. Unexpectedly, Han Yunqi said. But when Gu heard this from the rooftop, he suddenly felt inexplicably nervous. But what? Mu Ling-er asked again. But Lord Pill Fiend might not accept the challenge. Han Yunqi smiled. Mu Ling-er asked bluntly, What? Are you afraid of losing? You don't dare? As soon as these words came out, there was a wave of sighs. Although Gu Qisha's reputation wasn't good, everyone had to admit that he was capable. It was already impressive enough that Mu Ling-er dared to issue a challenge, but she actually dared to speak such arrogant words. How was this a newborn calf that was not afraid of a tiger? This was simply not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. Childish. Someone in the crowd finally couldn't help but angrily rebuke. Han Yunqi didn't say anything, and Mu Ling-er pretended not to hear anything. She deliberately raised her chin high and looked down at Pill Fiend Pharmacy's large signboard with an insufferably arrogant attitude. Esteemed Wangfei, if Lord Pill Fiend isn't afraid of losing, then please show yourself 7 days from now. If he's afraid of losing, Mu Ling-er's lips curled into a cold smile filled with disdain. After throwing down these words, she turned around and left. On the rooftop, Gu had already clenched his fists. Damn girl! Mu Ling-er had already walked far away when Han Yunqi suddenly shouted. Mu Ling-er, this Wangfei agrees on behalf of Lord Pill Fiend. Gu slowly looked up at the sky with a helpless expression. Damn girl! These two had caused such a big commotion. If he didn't show himself 7 days from now, wouldn't he look like a coward? Wouldn't Pill Fiend's reputation be ruined? However, if he did show himself, he would have to face Long Fei Yi directly. Thinking back to when Long Fei Yi had invited him to drink South Peak Red, he guessed that it was to expose his identity. Later on, due to a freak combination of factors, he had no choice but to expose himself in order to save Han Yunqi. In any case, no matter what the process was, he was exposed in the end. He had used those ineffective powders to prove that Long Fei Yi had a full bottle of antidote for broomcorn millet poison. With such a deliberate method, given Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi's brains, It would be strange if they didn't suspect him of having ulterior motives. At that time he had planned everything well. With irrefutable evidence, once Poison Lass believed that Long Fei Yi was lying, he would immediately send people to the hidden pavilion to cause a ruckus and lure her there. As long as Han Yunqi knew about Mute Granny, she wouldn't pursue his deliberate actions. However, who knew that Poison Lass didn't believe him at all, and the matter fell through just like that. This time he had shown his true face, and Poison Lass had asked him about the matter again. He had said a few words to her before he left, and he had put in a lot of thought into it. Unfortunately, it had only been a few days, and this lass had reconciled with Long Fei Yi again. What was there to be suspicious about? Under the circumstances where they had reconciled, her heart was biased. Moreover, after analyzing the entire matter, his deliberate actions were highly suspicious of him trying to drive a wedge between them. Alright, these weren't the things he was most concerned about. He had admitted that he wanted to drive a wedge between them. What he was most concerned about was the matter of him breaking into the hidden pavilion previously. Last time, he was almost certain that he would succeed and did his best to sneak into the hidden pavilion and take Mute Granny away. However, who knew that Long Fei Yi would come so quickly? At that time, he was determined to kill Long Fei Yi, so he didn't hesitate to expose his immortal body. However, why wasn't that damned Long Fei Yi dead? Han Yunqi didn't have the ability to save his life. Who knew which damn doctor had saved him? Actually, after that incident, Gu's smartest move was to distance himself from Mute Granny. Unfortunately, his biggest weakness was that he held grudges and refused to admit defeat. It wasn't easy for him to get hold of Long Fei Yi's weakness, so it would be strange if he didn't find a way to expose it. Thus, in the end, it was a tragedy for him. Once Gu Qisha's identity was exposed, Long Fei Yi would definitely know that he was the black-robed immortal who had broken into the hidden pavilion. With this weakness in Long Fei Yi's hands, how could he show himself so easily when he didn't have a foolproof plan in mind? He had long forgotten about Mu Ling Er's challenge. Who knew that things would turn out this way? Gu realized that ever since he had met Han Yunqi, his life had been filled with countless, who knew questions. Would he show himself 7 days later? Gu fell into deep thought. At the same time, Long Fei Yi was standing behind Han Yunqi, his lips quirked up into a faintly discernible smile. Just like that, Pill Fiend Pharmacy's grand opening ceremony ended with 2 shocking events. That very day, Pill Fiend Pharmacy opened for business. Business was booming, and a few ingredients were sold out of stock. Long lines of people began to form for Gu Beiyue's services. The Han clan came to help, but they were still understaffed. Han Yunqi helped out behind the scenes, while the busy Long Fei Yi sat by her side to learn how to fill prescriptions. Behind him stood a group of secret guards. The servants were all idle and had nothing to do. Your Highness Duke of Qin, is this really all right? When news of Gu Beiyue's presence at Pill Fiend Pharmacy reached Emperor Tianhui's ears, he felt a chill run down his back as fear filled him. He knew that Gu Beiyue and Han Yunqi were friends, but he had always respected Gu Beiyue as a doctor of noble medical ethics. He trusted that the man wouldn't act rashly. Judging from the current situation, it was truly fortunate that Gu Beiyue hadn't tried to assassinate Emperor Tianhui in the first place. Despite that, Emperor Tianhui's suspicions only grew. None of the imperial physicians by his side had good days ahead. Crack! There was a loud crash as the bedridden Emperor Tianhui viciously smashed a large bowl of medicine to pieces, frightening the servants waiting on him. "Where's the Empress?" he demanded. Chu Qingge was right outside his sleeping quarters. She took a few deep breaths to adjust her emotions before entering the room, indicating for all the servants to withdraw. Emperor Tianhui's illness was growing more unstable by the day, his temper growing worse by the day. Meanwhile, her stomach was still a disappointment. Her pregnancy had always been a rumor. She hated, hurt, and felt disgusted. But she had no choice but to treat this as the most important thing in her life. She had to find a way to conceive a dragon seed. Emperor Tianhui could only die if she was pregnant with the dragon seed. "Your Majesty, Qinxie is here. Come, drink your medicine." Chu Qingge personally carried over a new bowl of medicinal decoction. As soon as Emperor Tianhui finished drinking, she lowered the curtains and filled the room with their ambiguous sounds. It wasn't that Chu Qingge's heart didn't ache, but that she was gradually becoming a woman who could be cruel to herself. Which woman who was cruel to herself didn't harbor a towering hatred for herself? Too many emperors had died at the hands of women throughout history. Tianhui was about to become one of them. At most, Gu Beiyue's affairs would affect Emperor Tianhui, but Mu Ling-er's challenge to Gu Qixia had spread like wildfire to every corner of Cloud Realm continent. It was a sensation that caused a stir and became the topic of discussion in various circles. Many large gambling houses even started betting on whether Gu Qixia would accept the challenge. Even the furious Mu Ingdong couldn't help but wonder if Gu Qixia would show himself. As a result, Gu, who had already decided not to show his face, suddenly felt the pressure as he fell into a dilemma. As for Han Yunqi and Long Feiyi and Han Yunqi busied themselves until nightfall on the day of the grand opening. Han Yunqi was planning to get up early the next day to help out, when she opened her eyes to find herself sleeping in Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea. She bolted upright with a face full of fear. Long Feiyi, who was sitting on one side, immediately rushed over. "I'm here, what's wrong?" Han Yunqi threw herself into his arms as soon as she saw him. Her heart finally calmed down when she hugged him, but she still felt a lingering fear. She held him very, very tightly. "What's wrong?" Long Feiyi patted her back as he asked gently. "Your Highness, why are we here?" Han Yunqi remembered that they had returned to the Duke of Qin's manor last night, but now that she had woken up, she was in a different place. How could someone like her, who had transmigrated, not be afraid? The two dimensions of time and space were extremely mysterious. The combination of these two dimensions could create countless possibilities. She was afraid. She was afraid that when she woke up, the world would change, and the people would also change. "I rushed here last night and didn't wake you up when I saw that you were sleeping soundly. You should stay here for the next 7 days. Leave Pill Fiend Pharmacy to Gu Beiyue," Long Feiyi explained. Han Yunqi finally understood. She didn't know how careful Long Feiyi had been when he carried her in the carriage last night. She only thought that she had fallen into a deep sleep after being so busy with Pill Fiend Pharmacy for the past few days. "Why are you so scared?" Long Feiyi asked suspiciously. "This woman's mind can't be that weak, right?" "I had a nightmare." Han Yunqi was a little evasive. How should she explain transmigrating? She had to explain it clearly. "What did you dream about?" Long Feiyi asked again. "I dreamt." Han Yunqi hesitated for a moment, then whispered, "I dreamt that your Highness left me forever." Chapter 512. Leave Forever. Long Feiyi hugged Han Yunqi and rested his chin on her forehead. After a long silence, he finally said, "I won't. Unless I die." Han Yunqi immediately covered his mouth. "All right, let's not talk about this anymore." Long Feiyi countered. "Han Yunqi, what about you?" "No, absolutely not." Han Yunqi replied quickly and resolutely. No matter what, she would never. After the false alarm, Han Yunqi's heart was resolute. After Han Yunqi expressed her stance, she realized that Long Feiyi's gaze was a little different. He kept staring at her and didn't say anything for a long time. At first, Han Yunqi was still immersed in a faint sadness, but after being stared at by this guy for a long time, she gradually felt uncomfortable all over. She couldn't help but feel that Long Feiyi's gaze was a little strange. When it came to staring, there was probably no one in the world who could beat His Highness Duke of Qin. In any case, every time their eyes met in silence, Han Yunqi would always be the first to admit defeat. She timidly opened her mouth and said, "Long Feiyi, what's wrong? What did you just say? Say it again." Long Feiyi asked. She had just said that she would never leave him. "I said," Han Yunqi almost blurted it out, but when the words reached her mouth, she suddenly couldn't say it. Instead, she blushed. "Your Highness Duke of Qin, are you sure you're not teasing me?" Long Fei Yi laughed heartily and leaned over to her ear. His breath was domineering. This prince likes those words. Han Yunqi was both embarrassed and happy. All right. She admitted that she was more happy than embarrassed. Since she liked him so much, she might as well go all out. In any case, she was willing to go all out on many things, so this one wouldn't make a difference. She suddenly reached out and circled Long Fei Yi's neck. She pulled him down and pressed her lips against his ear. This princess will remember your words. Long Fei Yi was stunned. He was surprised that this woman was so bold. However, how could His Highness Duke of Qin be so easily taken advantage of after being distracted for only a moment? He took the opportunity to lean down. Han Yunqi could only slowly lean back and lie down. Long Fei Yi thought that Han Yunqi would let go, but she kept her arms around his neck and didn't let go. Ever since the last time she returned to her maternal home and smashed the bowl of medicine, this woman's guts had indeed grown fat. Han Yunqi almost let go, but seeing how domineering and bad he was, she refused to let go. As a result, she slowly lay on her back on the couch. Long Fei Yi slowly leaned over and buried his head in her collarbone. His neck was tightly held by her hands. Han Yunqi raised her head and couldn't help but laugh heartily. To think that His Highness Duke of Qin would be under someone else's control. Allowing Han Yunqi to laugh, Long Fei Yi buried his head and didn't move. But very quickly, Han Yunqi's laughter came to an abrupt halt. She suddenly quivered and her entire body tensed up. What's going on? Long Fei Yi was actually nibbling on her collarbone. There was a saying that one would get burned if one played with fire. Han Yunqi was the only one who could feel her entire body stiffening. Only her hands slowly let go of Long Fei Yi. Unfortunately, it was too late. Long Fei Yi was still going. The numbness quickly spread throughout Han Yunqi's body, and he gradually moved down and undid her collar. He had just let go, but Han Yunqi unconsciously wrapped her arms around him again. She couldn't help but murmur, "Long Fei Yi." It was precisely this murmur that caused the delirious Long Fei Yi to suddenly stop. He looked at her, a faint trace of helplessness flashing across his eyes, but it quickly disappeared. He bit her, then stood up and looked at her. "Are you still laughing?" Han Yunqi's courage was still limited. How could she dare to laugh? She obediently shook her head. She had almost misfired. No matter how brave she was, the consequences, alright, she didn't dare to imagine. Long Fei Yi was very satisfied and said mildly, "Rest well for the next few days. Don't run around before Gu comes." Han Yunqi's heart thumped. She knew that he would bring up this matter to her sooner or later. She wasn't sure how much of what he said last time was said out of anger and how much of it was true. "You also think that he will come?" Han Yunqi asked. "Do you think that he won't dare to come?" Long Fei Yi countered with a double meaning. "Let's take a gamble." Han Yunqi smiled faintly. "I bet that he'll dare." Han Yunqi's dare had a double meaning as well. "This prince is also betting that he'll dare to come," Long Fei Yi said. There were some things that both sides had a tacit understanding of. Han Yunqi got off the bed and chatted casually. "Since Imperial Physician Gu is here, if we can get Mu Linger to stay at Pill Fiend Pharmacy, then Qinxia won't have to worry about it anymore." Han Yunqi wanted to expand Pill Fiend Pharmacy and nurture it into a major power in the medical world. However, she really didn't want to trap herself in Pill Fiend Pharmacy. After all, medicinal ingredients weren't her forte, nor was it her interest. Her forte lay in poisons, but what she was most interested in was what Long Fei Yi planned to do next after throwing Tianing into chaos. If his target was Medicine City, then perhaps she could use this chance to learn more about Madame Mu Xian from Mu Yingdong. Mute Granny was already a thing of the past, so there was no point in worrying about it. On the other hand, Mu Yingdong, who'd imprisoned Mute Granny, must know a lot. Long Fei Yi was rather surprised. He'd always thought that Han Yunqi wanted to personally manage Pill Fiend Pharmacy. "Then what do you want to worry about?" Long Fei Yi asked. "I want to worry about what your highness is worried about. I want to share your highness's burdens." Han Yunqi was serious. Long Fei Yi, who'd been wearing an unsightly expression this whole time, actually smiled. I don't need you to worry about me. Don't worry. How could he not worry about anything that was in his heart? How could he not worry about it? Han Yunshi smiled as well. So you're saying that I'm meddling in other people's business? She hadn't noticed that he'd used the word multiple times. He also hadn't noticed that whenever he referred to himself as this prince, she'd refer to herself as Chinchia. Apart from that, she was calling him by his name more and more often. However, he did notice that this wasn't the first time he'd been rendered speechless in front of this woman. In the end, he coughed lightly a few times and said, "Do as you wish." If his subordinates heard these words, they'd probably stay awake for 3 days straight. Who in the world could really control His Highness Duke of Qin? Gu's matter seemed to have been glossed over in a few words. However, just as Long Fei Yi was about to leave, Han Yunshi couldn't help but say, "Your Highness? No matter what, Chinchia's life was saved by him. If he dares to come, I hope that your Highness will think thrice before acting." Long Fei Yi paused for a while before leaving. Han Yunshi's eyes flashed with a complicated light as she followed him out. However, she saw that Long Fei Yi didn't seem to have any intention of leaving Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea. He'd only gone to the pavilion in the garden. 7 days. Couldn't be considered long, but it couldn't be considered short either. Han Yunshi thought that Long Fei Yi would confine her to Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea and go out by himself. However, Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea seemed to be her paradise. Ever since she'd come here, Long Fei Yi had never left her behind. This time was no exception. Long Fei Yi and she settled down in the small hot spring villa. Although secret and urgent letters were delivered to them every day, Long Fei Yi didn't leave even half a step. The entire world was talking about Pill Fiend Pharmacy, but the two of them seemed to be on vacation, leisurely and carefree. Neither of them brought up Gu's matter again. Late autumn was approaching and the weather was getting colder. It was the best time to start soaking in the hot springs. Besides tea, hot springs were Long Fei Yi's favorite things to do. If he wasn't waking up in the morning or afternoon, he'd soak in the hot springs and sip tea in the midst of the mist. Last time, Han Yunshi had secretly noticed this habit of his. This time, she'd chosen to soak in the hot springs at noon or late at night. Yes, she really liked hot springs too. In the past, she'd always chosen to sneak into his quarters when he wasn't there. Every time, she'd been on tenterhooks, much less in an open pool like the hot springs. But now she'd grown bolder. Whenever she soaked in the hot springs, she'd take a nap. Tonight, she soaked in the water again and leaned against the side of the pool until she fell asleep. But suddenly, a figure flashed past the surrounding trees and landed outside. It was so quiet that Han Yunshi didn't notice it at all. Outside, Chu Shifeng clutched his chest and forced himself to stand up, his expression blank. He'd just returned and was in a rush to report to His Highness, but he'd been kicked to the ground before he'd even reached the hot springs. Of course he recognized the kick as His Highness's, so he was at a loss. He hadn't done anything wrong recently. Very soon, Long Fei Yi emerged with his hands behind his back and slowly descended from the roof. "Master," Chu Shifeng felt wronged. "Who allowed you to come in as you please? If there's a next time, you'll have to bear the consequences," Long Fei Yi said. Chu Shifeng looked back in the direction he'd come from and suddenly realized what was going on. He'd just come from the back of the hot springs where the hot springs were. Thinking up to here, Chu Shifeng's back grew cold with lingering fear. Fortunately, his martial arts were trash and he hadn't flown out of the woods. Otherwise. But could it be that the more they quarreled, the more intimate they became? Why are they fighting like this tonight? One is soaking in the hot springs while the other is standing guard? Chu Shifeng was quite quick-witted at times. He quickly said, "Your Highness, matters at Medical City aren't urgent. This subordinate won't disturb you any longer." Long Fei Yi had sent Chu Shifeng to Medical City to investigate Gu's past. Logically speaking, he should be anxious to know the situation now. But Chu Shifeng's words only made him wave a hand, indicating that he should withdraw. Chu Shifeng was a little flabbergasted. Actually, he'd only wanted to curry favor with the man. But Chu Shifeng gave a start, while Long Fei Yi retorted coldly, still not leaving? Chu Shifeng almost thought he was dreaming back to the Plum Blossom Sea, so he left in a daze. After making sure Chu Shifeng was gone, Long Fei Yi lightly leapt onto the roof of the hot springs again. The night was still and silent, its moonlight like a wash. Steam filled the hot springs as a beautiful woman slept. Although he was paying attention to the person in the springs, he was mostly paying attention to the movements around him. His face was cold, firm, silent, ascetic, stubborn, and frigid. Like the mysterious night, it was impossible to see through him. Was he guarding or spying? Truthfully speaking, guarding was more like spying. But when you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel, we're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.